Welcome to my full 3-hour Amazon PPC 101 course. So what I've noticed is, unlike most courses on YouTube out there, this course, which is done by me and Ryan, our head PPC genius, he takes you into his thought process of setting up the campaigns, the strategy, the philosophy, the best practices and tips. And the thought process is the most important thing for you to learn, especially now in the age of ChatGPT. Because if you want to know where to click to do this, how to do that, you can obviously just ask ChatGPT. But what ChatGPT can't really give you is looking inside the mind of a PPC genius. And that's what Ryan does in this course. So this course is perfect for you if you are a business owner and you want to get a basic, solid foundation understanding of Amazon ads so you can have conversations with your PPC manager and know if they're doing a good job or not. Also, this is a great course to give to your team, maybe your Google Ads person, your Meta Ads person, so everyone can kind of get up to speed on the philosophy, strategy, best practices, and how Amazon ads works and how to think about Amazon ads. Also, this is going to be great, obviously, if you want to start managing your Amazon ads yourself. And also, this course is great if you already know Amazon ads, but you want to get inside the mind of a PPC genius and their thought process, which brings me to the instructor of this course, which is Ryan Logan. Now, we've been running AMC together since 2018, and we've both been in the Amazon game since 2015, so over a decade. He is our head Amazon PPC genius. I literally have never met anyone in my entire career smarter at Amazon ads than Ryan. I've never met anyone that talks about Amazon ads or thinks about Amazon ads like Ryan. He is a true Amazon ads savant. I'm just going to say it. He's an absolute Amazon genius. So in this course, here are the lessons, and you'll be able to skip through these in the YouTube chapters. And just a couple case studies before we get into it, just to show you, not to brag, but we actually know what we're doing and these strategies actually work. And we've been doing this for over a decade. So we helped this brand launch with PPC to over 100K a month in 90 days. We helped this brand go from 5K a month to 500K a month with Ryan's PPC strategies, plus a lot more case studies. Also, another thing to be aware of is Amazon is always evolving the way that their Seller Central and Ads dashboard looks. So in this course, it may look different than your Seller Central dashboard now, depending on when you are watching this. Amazon is always adding little features here and there, but that is not the most important thing. The most important thing is to understand the thought process and strategy and how to think about Amazon ads. And that's what this course does a great job at, unlike other courses out there. So with that, enjoy the course, sit back, grab your favorite drink of choice, and I hope it is useful for you. All right, here with Amazon ads expert Ryan Logan, and let's just start with the basic. If you're talking to kind of a beginner, Amazon PPC, what is Amazon PPC?
Yeah, so Amazon PPC is it's a way to get more views for your product, to essentially purchase advertising retail space on the Amazon platform. It's really funny. A lot of people who are just shoppers on Amazon have no idea that there's this back-end system that allows you to actually purchase on a per-click basis impressions and opportunity for people to actually click on your listing. When you very first start on Amazon, Amazon doesn't necessarily know where to put you. You have a subcategory and you have kind of a placement in their system. But because it's all based on ranking, what tends to happen is that Amazon doesn't necessarily have a spot for you to take the top, but you can pay to get the opportunity for those impressions somewhere on the first page, because generally speaking, very few people really search past the first 2 pages for a product unless they're really just not seeing what they want, which is pretty rare. Usually they'll find in the first 2 pages, usually the first page, exactly what they're looking for.
This is sponsored brand ad, banner ad at the top. So anytime you see sponsored, they are paying an additional amount per click to Amazon to say, hey, show me up here, show me at these spots around Amazon. And it's not just top of search. You'll see them here. Here's a sponsored video ad placement. Here's a section down here, a section down here. And so anytime you're shopping on Amazon and you see that little sponsored badge, that means that brand is paying per click PPC for Amazon to show them. And this is pay per click in general is something that is always on. For the vast majority of sellers, you will always have it on. So it's a big part of Amazon selling long term, especially more important during launch, because you want to get your initial batch of reviews and sales and ranking algorithm, which we ranking juice, ranking position organically, which we talk about in other videos. And so that's the basic of what Amazon PPC is. It's very similar to Google pay-per-click. You are bidding on individual keywords. So when a shopper types something in the search bar, you are paying Amazon extra to show up for more people. I'll ask Ryan this in a second in terms of the next question. How should we think about Amazon PPC? The way that I think about it and explain it to sellers and clients, it is one way of driving more traffic to your product. It's on the Amazon platform, but there are other ways of driving more traffic. The best way you want to get most of your sales, ideally, is organically. So organically ranking on the top of page 1, and you'll hear us talk about that in lots of videos. That's where the big money is. So this guy is top number 1. He's top number 1 organically for the phone keyword phone wallet. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, like the top 5 to 10, that's where the vast majority of sales happen. And probably like 70% of all sales happen on page 1. So that's where the long-term big profit is going to come, your organic ranking. Okay, and organic ranking is also kind of used SEO, which means search engine optimization, which basically means optimize your place in search, which basically means get high as possible you can organically in search. But using pay per click, you can get up here right away during your launch, a little bit extra to build up your reviews and your sales velocity. So that's the way that I explain how to think about Amazon pay per click. It's one way of driving traffic, but you can also drive outside traffic to your Amazon listing that will boost your organic rank. You can also lower the price. You can also use coupons on Amazon, promotions. And so a lot of sellers and brands get wrapped up in like all success on Amazon is only about optimizing your pay-per-click, when really you should see the big picture of trying to get your organic rank high as possible. That's how I think about PPC. What about you, Ryan?
Yeah, I agree. So the strength to PPC is from an organic perspective. Obviously, organic ranking is the absolute best, right? Being there organically is the best in every aspect, because you tend to make like a 3 to a 1, sometimes even more, like a 4 or a 5 sales to 1 in ad spend. And in addition, there are some times when, as a customer, they type in a search term, phone wallet as an example, and sometimes the first few, because they're paid placements, they aren't as relevant as a broad competitor, right? Or a market competitor, where the broad market as a whole has said, hey, when this term is typed in, this is the number 1 product that people always choose. That's pretty much what the organic ranking really means. And so depending on how that top of search placement of an advertising actually works out, you can actually getting there organically is really the goal anyways. And so I like to use pay-per-click advertising as a form of increasing the ranking, not just in buying that real estate, because we have some clients who come to us all the time and they just want, they're like, hey, we just want our ads optimized, and we can do that. But you can actually use ads to increase ranking based on your relevancy, based on your conversion rate, and also your ability to gain sales velocity. And so depending on how you utilize that PPC, you can actually potentially limit yourself if you're not willing to push the boundary of sometimes where you feel comfortable. And so yes, everything that you said, and I also do it for the purpose of actually increasing my ranking. So if SEO is done properly, we also have to show Amazon that we have the supply to meet the demand that Amazon can provide us organically and through ads.
Awesome. Yeah, so that's the basics of Amazon pay per click / Amazon ads. It's all the same thing, pay per click. Amazon refers to it as Amazon ads. And this is what the campaign dashboard looks like. But yeah, that was the basics of what is Amazon PPC, what is Amazon ads, and how we think about it. And in another video, we're going to go over lots more stuff, including campaign dashboard, how we set up and all of that. That's it for this video.
In this video, we're going to go over the different types of ad types that you can actually do within Amazon's advertising console. So these are different types of campaigns that you can actually choose to create and have it display in different locations and with different parameters around them. So the three different types that you can do within advertising console is sponsored products, sponsored brands, and sponsored display. So if ever in doubt, Amazon has actually made this a very simple preview to see where the ads show and what they actually do. And you can actually see through the scroll through, or you can open the expanding window to get a better idea. I'll even show you here on the search page. So right here on the web browser or the desktop, it actually shows here, it's talking about this as far as sponsored product. It's going to show up on this products here, sponsored, and then elsewhere where it's saying sponsored within each one of the individual unit placements that it's actually showing sponsored. So sponsored here, any location that's actually within this grouping is going to be that. And then it shows it here for the desktop and then here for the mobile version where it shows up in line within the mobile version. And there's multiple different types, right? And we'll get into that into a minute. As far as where the other show up, you do have here in the search page, you also have on the listing itself, there are some sponsored product options, and it's going to show up under products related to this item. This is going to be additional sponsored product placement here and here. Those are going to be the different sponsored product options. Okay, now the next one is going to be sponsored brands, and there are multiple different types of sponsored brands, but generally these are going to be banner ads and then also video ads. And there's different types of banner ads that you can actually run, but that's mainly the meat of it. If you actually open up this window here or expand this window here, it'll actually show you here at the top of the search right here, this is a sponsored banner ad. Okay, so it shows it here at the top. It'll show different formats with it. So this is a sponsored brands video ad format in the search. Oh, so this one's actually showing this placement. So it's showing this, that it's in between the different searches because there's going to be sponsored products above and below it. Over here, this one is going to be sponsored brands product collection ASIN only ad format on top of search. So this is a banner ad or for a product collection or a storefront that can actually show up here. So it's almost this exact same format. It's at the top of search. There's no products above or below, or there's only products below. So it's symbolizing this right here. And then the next one over, a store spotlight ad format on top of search. So like I said, you can actually do a product collection, which is like this. That's actually what this is, a product collection. And then you can also do where it's a store format. So you'll see here, this is actually the store itself, the kitchen store, kitchen smart. And then it has the different categories of the different products. And so you can have it formatted differently where instead of it highlighting the actual products like this previous one here, the collections or the ASINs, it actually is showing different spotlights. Okay, and then the next one, this is just showing the sponsored brands product collection custom image. So this same format of this same format here on the mobile version. So those are going to be essentially where their placements are. And then comes the sponsored display ads. Okay, and if you open up this window, there's sponsored display ad placements on Amazon. And so within the actual product page, you'll actually see that if you come into the product page, it's actually showing here this exact same format right here, right? So the main image, and then the different variation types, and then the buy box, the title, bullet points, everything here, it's showing that same format right. And so it's saying right here at the top, this is going to be a sponsored display ad. If there's one here, so saying this is a sponsored display. This is a sponsored display because it's showing up within the ad placement or within the listing, sponsored display. And then there's a couple other sponsored display. It can show like sponsored display video ad right here. similar brands. So this will either be display, or they've actually started integrating some of the sponsored brand video ads also into this for beta testing. And so those are just some basic placement options as far as where that is going. Now, with some additional things with Amazon or sponsored display ads, this is on. Now, there are other options where you can actually choose off Amazon or on sister sites. So, such as this one that shows on Twitch, you can actually choose sponsored display ad placement on different locations. So if you're targeting certain customers that have actually visited your page recently or recent viewers, if they're on Twitch, it can actually show up in a different, what is called an ad placement on Twitch. And so it kind of shows that as an example here. Another Twitch example is a different sponsored ad placement on the lineup. So instead of it being a banner, it would actually show up here in a display. This is just an ad placement off of Amazon on some other generic website. Amazon does have the option to actually trigger this within a website that follows Amazon's ad policies. And so you can actually get placement off of Amazon that way. And you can, another one as far as a generic website that follows Amazon's ads policies and is part of their contributing program, you can actually show up on that website's location, even if it's a blog or something else that is considered an affiliated website, right? And so that's one of the things that you can do for targeting different demographics, people coming in, interest-based, etc. So sponsored display, in my opinion, is probably one of the most broad opportunities that you can get. Very heavy for impression-based a lot of times, especially off of Amazon. You're doing some retargeting efforts, that type of stuff. Sponsored brand really is more of just brand awareness. You can show good images associated with your product, show up in categories, category conversions, how is your brand in general being perceived and viewed, that there. So that's where like the video content, the banner ads, that type of stuff is really powerful. And then the sponsored product is just the placement. So where your placement is within the search fields and on other product pages. So all other options within this can be formatted or chosen for the different campaign types. You can actually go in and choose sponsored product, sponsored display, or sponsored. So search terms or product targeting campaigns here. You can do similar with sponsored brands and also sponsored display, but those are within the actual targeting aspects, but this is the broad aspect of these. If ever in doubt, you can always come and actually click on the Explore Sponsored Products, Brands, or Display, and it will, of course, explain additional opportunities and metrics and things there to you.
All right, here with Amazon Ads expert Ryan Logan, and we are in the Amazon Ads console or dashboard. So yeah, give us a tour as if I am a beginner of the Amazon Ads console. Where do you hang out? What are the main kind of pieces, elements? What do I need to know if I'm getting started doing this for my business? So yeah, off to you.
Yeah. So first thing you should know, Amazon is constantly rolling out and implementing new changes. Most of where I hang out is really here in campaigns, budgets, products, targeting. These have been really fun betas that they actually rolled out, and I really like those. And then also in the measurement and reporting, this is a place where I like to hang out because they're sponsored ad report. So you come into the advertising console through Seller Central. So you click on advertising, you come in here for campaign manager, it brings you here. Just know that if you ever get lost in all of this, you can always, in the top left corner, there's always going to be this Amazon ads option. And if you click on it, it brings you back to this page right here. Okay. And so it always brings you back to Amazon ads with campaigns. So if you're ever lost, you can always come back. So if we land here in the advertising console, campaigns, this section right here, or this tab is going to be associated with all the current campaigns as they stand. And you can actually look at all these. You obviously have graphs here that you can actually choose the different ratios or pieces of the graph that you actually want in there. If you ever want to change it, you can actually click on the drop down arrow, or some of the older versions have it where there's a little X in the top right corner that you can click on the X and it removes it. There's a plus sign after you can click on it and add another one. But you can change it from, in this case, we'll do ROAS. And if I'm like, hey, I want to know what the clicks are, I can actually adjust it for clicks, to spend, to sales, and I can watch all the graphs at once, or I can really narrow down, okay, my sales and my clicks associated with that, or the one that I tend to like the most is actually impressions. I feel like that impressions does show things pretty well. And then also cost per click is one that I look at consistently too. If there's certain weeks or months or days that we tend to have sometimes better sales or lower sales, sometimes you can look at the cost per click and say, oh, wow, if we actually hang out around this certain cost per click, we have certain results. So anyways, you can mess around with these graphs and use those to actually show you the data that you want to see. And then coming down, you have your campaigns as it shows here in these headings, campaigns, impressions. When you actually first come into the advertising console, most of these are not clicked. In fact, if I remember right, it really starts off with spend, sales, and maybe ROAS are really the only columns that are actually showing. So when you first come in and you start an ad campaign, you are going to have to customize these columns right here, as well as you can always customize the date range. But in customizing the columns, you just come over here and hit customize columns. In fact, we just reset to default. We'll change all the columns. Yeah, it's missing a few things here that I like to look at. So usually I'll come into columns, I'll hit customize columns. I like to know what portfolio they are in, the impressions, advertising cost of sale. So that is what I am used to. I'm actually more familiar with that because of Amazon's platform than I am with ROAS. So I tend to like to look at that more. And then if you're running a lot of different branding campaigns, you can actually hit these. And these are going to be different columns that you can use just for mainly branded campaigns. And then you hit apply and they're all there and you can look at those. And every campaign is going to have the overall bird's eye view of every single one of basically all the data over that span or that lifetime, okay, or that date range. So you can do today, yesterday, last 7 days, this week, last 30 days, this month, last month, year to date, and lifetime. And now you can also drag and drop a custom if you wanted to, but it really only goes back roughly 90-ish days for you to actually pull that data. And so this is where a search term report is a little more helpful because you can actually manually pull that data instead of just trying to get it to show up here in the advertising console. We'll get to that later, but you can actually choose those different time periods. Now, there is a preset that I do like of the last 65 days that you can get into the search term report within the console to actually pull. And so that is a preset that I do. So I'll actually intentionally go into a search term report here in order to change that as a preset. As far as the campaign structure, we'll get into that first because this is really where you're going to hang out the most, is probably in campaigns. And so we'll just walk through this. So when the campaign is created, the campaign structure, when you click on the campaign, there's going to be a campaign, and then underneath that campaign is basically ad groups. I tend to not do more than one ad group, but I know other people who do multiple ad groups in a single campaign, and that's the hierarchy and the structure of that campaign. If you look at it as that type of a funnel, and so you can actually have different pieces of this campaign. We've already walked through how to create a campaign. So once a campaign is created, this is what it looks like, and this is how it's housed. So you click on it in the ad group, so you can click right into the ad group and it'll actually take you to the ad group level, but we're going to look on the campaign level first. So on the campaign level, this is where you control bid strategy, placement bids, and then you can also insert negative targeting on the campaign level, regardless of any ad group that's ever created. Now, I tend to do very little in the campaign level as far as negative targeting. Some people don't, but I work mainly with just a single ad group. So I usually don't create multiple ad groups, but some people do. You can create budget rules. This is something that you can go and create different rules associated with budget, where if you're like, hey, I'm hitting a certain ACoS or a certain threshold, feel free to increase my budget, et cetera, et cetera. You can create those rules if you want to. In the campaign settings here, you can actually change your campaign name at any time. You can also change the portfolio here if you want. You can turn it on and off, as well as you can in the main campaigns page. You can adjust budget. You can put an end date if you wanted to. You can change the bidding strategy from a dynamic bids up and down to dynamic bids down only, fixed bids, or this one doesn't accept rule-based bidding, but some of the other campaign types do. And then you can still adjust the placement bid here under campaign settings. Now notice if you do change it here, it will also change over in placements, right? And vice versa. So I come in here and I put 0, it will actually change it here. I don't know why it didn't go through, but it's supposed to. Anyway, so that's that placement, also the history. Now, one thing to be aware of, if you're trying to look at the history of a campaign, there's different pieces of data attached to the different pieces of history, okay? So you actually have history that's actually going to be associated with, there's an account history, overall account, you have a campaign history, and then you have an ad group history. And so ad group history is going to be cost per click changes, obviously inserting negative products, negative terms, that type of thing, pausing ad group or pausing search terms and targets there. On the campaign level, you're going to see different statuses. So if it was if the whole campaign was paused or unpaused, if the portfolio was changed, if it ran out of budget, those are different things that are going to be on the campaign level, because those are what's associated with that grouping of that house. That is the campaign structure. Okay, so if we come over to ad groups, if you click on ad group, so this one we just have as ad group 1. If you had multiple ads, we'll actually go back here so you can see that. If you ever want to add additional ad groups with different targeting types, you can do that by creating an ad group here. You can manually create another ad group right there. Just like this, you can add things in, whatever. So I'm going to go back. All right, so coming back in, so under ad groups, we're going to click on ad group 1. And this takes us to the next level. So you'll see ads. And in ads, in the ad section, is the different houses, the different products that you want to advertise to. Okay, so we can, at any time, we can add different products to advertise within this ad group. We can click them all here. If we add it in, then we can click add products to advertise. And when done, it'll actually pop up here as another option. Then you can do targeting. And this is going to be where either the search terms are or the different type of so this one's an automatic campaign. You'll have the different match types, loose match, close match, complements, and substitutes, which we've gone over these in that other campaign structure. The bid type, or sorry, the bid amount that you're actually bidding for that. And then the different ratios and things associated with that. You can have negative targeting in here. So if we put in negative keywords, they're actually going to show up here on the ad group level. Search terms, it really only shows the search terms for, like I said, the last 30 days. There is a preset here in the search terms section of the ad group. You can actually change this preset to the last 65. And if it has data within the last 65, it'll show up. In the ad group settings, you can change the name of the ad group. You can pause or activate the ad group. And you can even adjust to the default bid that you actually want that ad group to consistently have. And then, of course, you can come into history. In this history, we change this over lifetime. So there will actually be different targeting ad group loose match added. This is actually just basically when the campaign was actually created for a lot of this. And that's where you're going to find the history. But like I said, this is where you're going to find a lot of different cost per click changes showing up here, everything. And if you ever want to go back, you can actually go back. You can follow the sectionals of this, or the sections of this. So you have all campaigns, which is the main page. You have the campaign level that you're actually at, and then you have this, the ad group. So if you have multiple ad groups and you're like, oh, I want to go look at ad group number 2, or if you want to just go back to the campaign level settings, level to actually make some adjustments there, you can just click here and it'll take you back to the campaign. And then you'll see here on the ad group, you can adjust it to the placements. And if you're done here, you can always come back to all campaigns. All right, so that is how the ad groups and the campaigns are structured. Different campaigns do have different structures. Amazon, again, is still trying to conform this so it's universal across even the different types, like the product target or the sponsored products, sponsored display, and even sponsored brand, where they show up very similar. So it doesn't seem like it's very different, but in the past, they actually were significantly different, but they're doing a lot better at that now. as an example, this is a traditional sponsor brand video ad right here. And here, when sponsor brand video ads were originally created, you didn't have ad groups. You had just the targeting, the negative targeting, creative. Like you don't even have a search term report here. Whereas if you actually have a newer campaign, a newer sponsor brand ad, it actually does have that. That's so most of you will not likely experience one that's this basic. It's going to be a little bit more advanced. So within this main section, okay, for all the campaigns, really under sponsored ads, when you click on this tab over here and then hit campaign manager, so under campaign manager directly, this is where these are the tabs that I mainly hang out with. Like I said, there is a history associated with the account level view. And so if we click in here, it will actually show over the lifetime all the different changes. It's going to take forever to load, so I'm probably going to move on from this before this is even loaded, but it'll show all of the different changes. It'll have similar scopes. Anytime that it shows up with these dotted lines, that means that there actually is different changes associated with this. Like you'll actually see in essentially November of 2019, there were 2,800 changes, and it actually keeps track of all the different changes over these different time periods for that month. And so if you ever needed to, you can actually just say, okay, I need to actually zero in on the different changes that occurred at this time. So if you made a whole bunch of changes in a given month and you notice that the data skewed in a negative way, you can go back and review that data. That's the whole point of the history. Now, there are softwares that get a little more granular into this in a single bird's eye view that you can actually narrow down and just really start funneling down into the different things. And so if you have that software and want to utilize that software, you can. Otherwise, it's always readily accessible here in Amazon Ads Console. Sometimes people just don't know where to find it. So here's the history. Over here, you also have settings. Okay, so on your account level, I have to be very careful with this. Usually, actually, what do I do, Riley, if I don't normally show a beginner something that I think that they can really mess with and really mess things up?
You can give your take on this.
All right, I normally don't share this with people, especially beginners. So take this with a grain of salt, okay? And don't use it unless you know there could be consequences, okay? Normally, everything is set up. When you first launch a campaign, there is a campaign level budget that you actually set here, right? So you have start date, you have the budgets right here. I can actually adjust this to be $400 or whatever I want to do. And that's the daily budget associated with that. It doesn't mean that Amazon is going to use all of that budget, especially given the amount of cost per click that you're doing. And there's all sorts of other influences that can, and other factors that decide really if you're going to be blowing through or using that budget. Now, over here in the settings on the campaign level, you can actually adjust and control budget flow. So right now on Riley's account, we actually do have a $600 daily budget cap, which means if at any time we blow through $600 of budget, then it just stops. No big deal. Now that is because we have done testing after testing, and this is a comfortable place for us to hang out. Now, if you ever want to remove this, you actually have to click on use campaign level budgets and hit clicks and hit save. Or if you ever want to establish a daily budget, you have to click on here and enter the daily budget cap that you want and hit save. So that is one thing. This is usually not a bad thing to do. The other option where you can control budgets in kind of different way is actually over here in portfolios. Okay, so you can group campaigns by portfolios. In fact, I know some people who have experimented with different funnels. I've done it actually myself for some clothing companies. We actually have like different portfolios that deal with different types of products, right? And this is very similar. So when you click on portfolios, you can actually come over here, and this you'll actually see the data associated with how each one of the portfolios is doing. This is one of the best things that Amazon has actually added, in my opinion, in the last little while, because I like to organize by portfolios to keep things organized. So here is where I can actually see that. And I can say, okay, so the foreign one, this was the data. The sponsored display ads, this was the data. The lavalier mic, this is the data, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I can see it from a bird's eye view according to how that specific groupings of ads actually did. If in the foreign one, I wanted to adjust this even further, if I click into the portfolio, I can actually, at the top, there's now a banner here that says modify, that is about the portfolio. And I can hit modify portfolio. I can change the name of the portfolio. I can also insert and change a budget cap. So right now there's no budget cap associated with it. Okay. But just as you can put a budget cap on the account and say, hey, I'm never going to spend more than $600 in a day, I can also come in here and say, hey, during a certain date range from budget start to budget end, I only want to spend 150 bucks between this day, or if there's no end date, then as soon as the $150 is done, that portfolio stops. Or if you put between your date, even if you don't max out the 150, that means that budget ends that day, even if you don't hit the budget cap. The other option is to do recurring monthly. This is actually, I've experimented with this strategy a little bit more, and I like it a little bit more when there's designated ad spend associated with different products. That happens sometimes. I'll actually put like a recurring of $200 for this portfolio that is recurring every single month, and it might end on a certain time. I'll put never, and then you have to, of course, hit save changes. Where you have to be very careful is when you utilize these different date ranges. I had a client actually in the past who reached out to me and they said they were super concerned, and they said, our total ad spend, we've spent 45 cents today. What's the problem? And this is the first place I came to look, because I knew that the client had talked to me about putting in budget caps, and they had put in like a $75 budget cap, and he put a budget start and then no budget date. So it ran out of 75 bucks and just paused all the campaigns associated with that in the entire portfolio. So this is where you do want to be a little more careful, but it is, as long as you take the time to look at this, it's pretty simple. But you can get into complications with this if you're not careful.
So you like to set the portfolios usually like per one product, or if it's like one of the hero products, have that all in the portfolio, which is a collection of campaigns.
Correct.
All right, what else is going on in here? Anything else worth noting?
Yeah, so over here in the sponsored ads section, you have drafts. So if you ever create a sponsored display ad or a sponsored brand ad that was not approved, or you didn't finish it quite in the section, it's saved in draft. You can come over here and edit, or you can delete them. You can edit them to try and update it so that it actually does get approved. Over here in budgets, this is a beta group right now, but this actually keeps track of over a certain time period, how were the different campaigns at staying in budget. So this is actually one thing that is really hard. If you're not in Amazon all the time, sometimes you miss when campaigns run out of budget. And so this, I actually love this section. I think this is a great beta to add in and section to add in, because it will usually give a recommended budget if it's out of budget, and you can update that budget to fit in that average time in budget, so you can have spend the whole entire time. Now, this is something fairly new, but I believe that Amazon will consistently roll it out. But you can actually come in and view how each product is doing on its own merit, regardless of the different campaigns that it's actually associated with it.
Oh, that's good.
Yep. Yeah, this is brand new. I don't know if you've even seen this, Riley.
No, but it makes sense.
Yeah, they've needed to do something like this for a while. Like I said, there's different softwares that you could pull this, and it would actually extract all this data, and you could even pull it from different reports. But Amazon is making those same reports more readily accessible, just straight up in the advertising console. And so I've been actually pulling less and less search term reports and other reports, because most of it's accessible. And so I don't need to as much, which is nice. Yeah, you can actually look at just a single SKU. You can drop it down if there's additional variations associated with that. Or actually, this will drop down, I think, all the different campaigns. That's right. So different campaigns associated with that. So you can actually look at it from a total bird's eye view on how everything is relating to the overall numbers, which I love. So it's super solid. You can even break it down again into different ad groups if there's multiple ad groups. This, in my opinion, is potentially the best update that I think Amazon has actually done. In the targeting section, this one is actually really good. They tried to make this almost like a search term report in the way that it gives you a little bit more data, because in most everything in these sections, it doesn't actually tell you your conversion rate. That's actually one of the downfalls. That's usually why people are like, you got to pull a search term report. There's only a few places that you can add a column for conversion rate, and one of them is actually here. So this is, if you hit customize columns, when you get in here, you can click on conversion rate and you can add it. And it's actually where you can actually see it. Now you see it on an ad group level. And I shouldn't say ad group, on a targeting level. So most of this is all just within the different targets that you're actually doing. And so they're all associated with different campaigns. And so it's scattered around a little bit, but if you keep things pretty well organized, you can always filter things out and be able to narrow down within certain campaigns how a specific target or phone wallet stick-on is doing within a campaign and an ad group. So you can look at this an 8% conversion rate, 7%, 6%, 8%, etc. And you can actually look at it here without having to go into a whole bunch of different ad groups. Like I said, this is mainly where I hang out with most ads. Now, if you want to know these sectionals here, these things are always good. If you have multiple accounts, over here in the top right, this is actually where you're going to actually click on the different accounts or advertising accounts. This would actually include also if you have Mexico and Canada as well. Those would actually be over here. Different notifications, questions, account settings, and then over in the settings, the administration section here, this is where if you need to deal with like your sponsored ad billing, if you ever have something that pops up that says, hey, you need to change your credit card, that's usually here. Account transparency log, account access and settings. There's other permissions and things you can actually do in here. We'll start from the bottom on these groupings here and work our way up. Over time, Amazon implemented a creatives section where you can actually upload creative assets before you actually use them in an ad. So it used to be that in order to create a sponsored brand ad or a sponsored display ad, you had to create the ad and then submit the content. And then Amazon says, nope, sorry, that doesn't work. And then you went through all the process of adding all the search terms, all this other stuff prior. And now what you can actually do is in the creative assets, you can actually upload content directly. I'm actually a fan of this. So you can upload content directly. And once it's uploaded, you can actually request moderation for that thing. And if it gets approved based on sizing formats and all the other formats associated with it, then notice how it says moderation in progress. In the next 24 to 48 hours, this will go under review. And if it's approved and there's no violation of any kind associated with it, we can actually use this in a sponsored display or sponsored brand ad without having to go through the approval process, which means that if that is the content that we're using in that display or video ad, or brand ad, they will actually approve it right away instead of having to go through another approval process. It actually has removed a lot of, in my opinion, headache. In addition, having access to all these different assets is, I believe, a good thing. You can use them for all of your other things. You can also get other free professional images. They have this where you can actually pull this. I forget the group that it's actually done, but the stock photos, you can actually pull some of this stuff for campaigns. Others in the creative, if you hit creative services, this will actually take you to the different groups that you can actually basically hire to actually do this for you, which is cool. And then the video builder, this is actually, it's not great. I don't actually love the video builder, but that's something that you can use if you want to. I just use Canva. I think Canva is better anyways, but you can create a video based on different content that's on a listing, content that's on the listing, etc. So measurement and reporting is probably the next best place. Amazon attribution. If you are running Google ads, if you are running ads or anything actually to Amazon, make sure that you signed up for this, and then you can actually create different campaigns that actually track different data associated with those outside Amazon campaigns coming in. So the advertising that's associated with that. So you can track those, and there's actually a brand referral bonus of 10%. So Amazon charges a 15% referral fee for any product. In a case where you are actually driving outside traffic to Amazon, Amazon says, hey, for any sale that occurs, we will actually give you back 10%. So instead of taking the full 15, we're only going to take 5, and we'll give that other 10% back to you. So this is one of the ways that has actually helped improve the outside traffic flow, that Amazon has been incentivizing that. And we have seen a lot of really good stuff for the Amazon attribution program. So you will have to sign up for that. If you're not doing that, it's a good thing. Not all campaigns work out. It wasn't working super effectively for Riley's stuff, so we didn't do it. But we have other clients that it works really well for. And after you get back that brand referral program, we've had it where it has actually basically equaled the same result as what we're getting in our normal internal PPC campaigns. So our sponsored ad reports. This is another place where I tend to hang out quite a bit. If I need a specific type of report, you can hit create report. And if I'm doing deep dives into anything, so you have it according to 3 different types: sponsored products, sponsored brands, sponsored display, endemic, and then you have, of course, Amazon attribution now. But usually I'll do sponsored products, search term report is my favorite, but if I have a ton of different products that I'm actually working on, I will actually say, hey, I want to know what the advertised product is. I want to know maybe placement, purchase product, purchase over time, search term impression share, and some of these other ones. Most people, okay, so most people who are even watching this video are probably going to hang out in the search term report because they want that over a different section. And yes, you can do the last 30 days, or you can come back and do about the roughly the last 90 as well and pull that all. And this will pull up for all products. You can click save, and then you can give it a name if you want to. You really don't need to, and then you just hit run report, and it will actually pull that report right here. Once it's done, you can download it as a CSV and then review it and do different funnels associated with that to really just compile that data and help it look really good. Report settings, yeah, you don't really need to hang out there. So that's the measurements and reporting. It's a good section to become familiar with for anybody. Like I said, more and more Amazon is moving it where you don't actually have to download nearly as many reports as we used to, just because so much of it is actually showing up right there in the sponsored ads. So you also have brand content here, brand profiles, and your brand store that you can go to and actually build that content there. And then insights and planning. If you want to work on brand metrics, brand impression share, this is actually a good thing that Amazon's been rolling out as far as impression share, saying, hey, where are all your ads versus other advertisers, sponsored products, how is that showing up over the full time? And then sponsored products and sponsored brands and how it's performing. You can apply different filters as it shows up. Then brand metrics. Category brand metrics for lifestyle designs, under the different categories, for accessories, adhesive card holders, etc. It'll actually show you total brand shoppers within that section, engaged shopper rate, which is this. And so this is actually the percentage of shoppers in this like the category that your brand is driven on engagement with or purchased from in that time frame. Customer conversion rate, which is solid, it's a great conversion rate, Riley. And then the percentage of new to brand sales associated with that. You can change that over a different course, select a month or a week, etc. I actually love, as your brand starts building, it's always good to at least review either here in the ads console or even in brand analytics within Seller Central. You can get a lot of power from that. And then of course, opportunities. Amazon is always recommending things. You don't always have to do the things that they recommend, but it's always good to at least see what they have, different learning sources of how to use their advertising or the different platforms or sections within Amazon, building your brand, update your store, create more posts, create a video translation request, etc. So that it'll actually show up with different languages, etc. learning resources, and so on. They're always I'm not going to go into that. I was going to talk for a second about my concern with Amazon sometimes just always recommending things that's actually going to increase your spend, but not necessarily your sales.
Yeah.
So
Rule
I
of
won't cover
thumb.
that.
Yeah. Amazon's recommendation will always say, hey, you want to spend more? Even the reps will email you and call you.
Yeah.
Their sales reps, they want you to spend more on their product and
Yeah.
services. So we tell, just don't worry about that stuff.
Yeah. In my 6 years of doing Amazon, I guess seven now. Has it been 7 years, Riley? I think it's 7 years.
Yes.
So 7-ish years of doing this, I have yet to have someone impress me that actually works for Amazon Ads console. Like a representative who I think they understand. This is where I have issues. Like the learning resources are tailored towards Amazon working in a specific way. And I believe that they are given SOPs. They're like, hey, follow this SOP. And they do that. And I think they learn that system. The problem is that that system doesn't translate well into actually how the platform actually runs and the results associated with it. So anyways, that's its own rant. Over here, there's other tools and resources. You can actually get back to Seller Central by clicking on this. The Learning Console, if you want to go there, Partner Directory, and Posts. So that's, in a nutshell, the entire system that you're going to see here. Now, over time, there may be other things added. Amazon, like I said, is always rolling out other bulk options, or not bulk options, but beta options, testing out different things based on feedback from sellers like us or agencies like us who are like, hey, it would be really cool if you could make it where we can actually have multiple graphs, because for about 6 years, you could only have 2. They literally rolled this out within the last month, and it's been money. So it's been really good.
Makes sense. Awesome. There you go. Walk through the ads console from Ryan. And of course, in other videos and presentations, we go over campaign structure, strategy, and all that good stuff. that's it for now.
All right, we are here with Amazon expert Ryan Logan, and he will go over his presentation of Amazon keyword targeting and how it all works. So I'll hand it over to you, Ryan. Go ahead and teach me, drop the knowledge on Amazon keyword targeting, how the system works, how it all works, how you think about this. And so, yeah, looking forward to seeing your presentation here.
This is actually where it gets really, really fun on Amazon, because it's actually product related in relation to the market. Okay, so you're going to hear so many different perspectives from Amazon experts where they say you got to niche down, into something specific, and then you have these, and yet you have these other products that take the broad market by storm and they just kill it on Amazon. So you have to realize that there is place on Amazon for both products. You will actually often see it where in the top of page, right, or on page one, you'll see a wide variety of products. You will see a low price product that is a general broad market winner, and they really take it by storm. But then there's sometimes where a niche product, one that is tailored, maybe it's a little bit more expensive, a little bit higher quality, but it's tailored more specific to the audience, starts winning out. And part of that is because the Amazon algorithm is fairly unbiased in that perspective. To a few points, there's some things that weigh heavily on that as far as click-through rate, obviously conversion rate. But conversion rate kind of comes and goes. But it has to do with more of where the interest of the market actually lies. The algorithm itself can naturally process what is going to be a trend setter. This is an example. So there's a general market and then there's sub markets. And so if product X is the general market expectation. Okay, so when someone types in small flashlight, Amazon says, hey, when someone types in small flashlight, this is the product that they are anticipating seeing. Okay, and they do that through SEO, through conversions, etc. Like Amazon has the data on that. It's not anything that's new or rare in that aspect. But then there's sub markets, right? So flashlight, 500 lumens or 1,000 lumens or 1,500 lumens, there are certain characteristics that make up a sub market, something that they are looking for specifically, right? And so for a general market, they could actually still be part of a sub market trend. However, there are parts that the algorithm actually adjusts for. Okay, so if product X, as an example here, I kind of said, hey, if product X is the general market expectation, so when someone types in small flashlight, Amazon says, hey, most people, or a good portion of the market, when they type in small flashlight, these are the products that they click on, and these are the products that they buy. However, product Y is eventually introduced to the market, and over time, it catches on and takes the sales velocity. It will become the new general market expectation. This happens a lot where we'll have a client or someone that we're consulting, and they're like, hey, my product used to be at the top, and then I ran out of inventory, or over time this new guy came in, now they're taking all the sales. And it's like, well, is your product outdated? There are actual product life cycles as it occurs even on Amazon. There's also trends of the market, something that is new that might actually come up and take the opportunity away. So anyways, that's kind of as far as general and sub markets there. As an example of a general market, bestsellers in the category: relevance, demand, and interest, customer expectations when they type in that search term, acceptable quality, sales velocity. Those are all things that Amazon actually keeps track of. And then sub markets, of course, which can be higher price, unique selling position, branding, lower price, reviews. And so those are different things that actually be part of a sub market. And so this is, when I created this originally, it's like what we think it looks like is like, hey, when we type in small flashlight, this is what it looks like. But what it actually is made up of actual customer demographic or clusters, the same way that other platforms actually are too. So there are sub niches within each one. So even though if this is all of the keyword small flashlight, you might actually still have sub markets in there of different income than just a general or low income, or a high income. Some people always compare the top 10 listings. Some people only purchase on or click literally on the top listing because they're like they're in a hurry. Purchases only on weekends, never looks past the top 6 listings, read reviews, etc. Also purchase a sleeping bag, so they're actually going camping. Only buys organic. Maybe that doesn't play as much of a role in small flashlights, but there is actually demographic information that is related to the organization of sometimes the products and how they lay out for Amazon. And so those are clusters that actually are there So it comes back to what we can control. So Amazon has the search terms, the search volume. They have customers with interests, purchase behavior, demographics, and groupings. They have all that information. What we can actually only control is the campaign types, where the ad shows, kind of search terms to target, bids, budget strategies, listings, SEO, those types of things, right? And so it's important that we utilize those as best as we possibly can, which brings us back to this, okay? During a product launch, because a lot of this is actually based on, okay, what is your product? Is it a niche product or is it actually a general market product? During a product launch, it has been my experience that if you can get a hold of a general market, there's some ways that it works and some ways it doesn't. Okay, so if you are a brand new product and you only have 200 inventory in stock, Amazon will likely not let you actually get top of page one for a 40,000 search term or search volume term, or even possibly for a 10,000 or a 7,000 or a 5,000. Okay. But Amazon is probably okay with you actually taking kind of lower volume search terms. Okay. So that's why inventory management in launch is also very, very, very important to making sure that Amazon can control the experience of providing more traffic to you. During launch, traffic is really what matters. Okay. The traffic produces the traction. All right. And so when we first start off in a launch, the big thing is that maybe down here is it. This is like the optimization and the scale as far as a funnel. But when we first start a launch, we actually are over here in essentially an audience expansion. We want to provide Amazon with as many touch points of data as we possibly can. Okay. Because Amazon sees a cluster of data, right? So they are doing this for our own product as well. It's not just, oh, do we convert for a search term? Amazon is also seeing how do you convert and how well do you do on an audience based or with a customer demographic as well. Okay. And so getting as many touch points here matters. Amazon wants to actually see, is your product going to be a general audience, or is it going to be a niche audience product, or is it going to be a hybrid between the both? Amazon can figure that out as far as the algorithm. So it's all about just training that algorithm the way that we need to. And so as far as first point, we really are trying to do as much as we can to get the traffic that we want. We want as many impressions, we want as many sessions, we want as many clicks essentially as we can. And then we can actually adjust those things to get to the proper conversion rates that we actually need, or a page one competitor, and hopefully a top page one competitor. We do that with pricing, with the images on the listing. We can actually do that. In addition, when we actually launch a product, if you are brand registered, which we always recommend that you do get, in order to unlock manage experiments such as title tests and main image tests and these other things that are pretty basic that you actually really want for a conversion and click through, the best way to do that is you actually have to, Amazon says this, you have to have a certain amount of traffic for that to unlock for a product. So even within Amazon's game, so to speak, they actually say, hey, traffic and impressions and sessions matter for us to actually do any type of a split test. And so during a launch, the sooner that we can unlock that split test opportunity within the brands, that does matter. So during a launch, this is really where we want to hang out. Okay. And over time, we're going to get enough demographic information, enough purchases, enough clicks, and everything where eventually we can actually start, like ads themselves will start to kind of optimize. So this is actually pretty normal. Sometimes if you let campaigns kind of run for about 2 to 4 weeks here, you'll actually see where you'll start off with maybe a really high ACoS, and it can actually fluctuate within about a I'll just throw out numbers. Like you'll start off with maybe 100% ACoS. Okay, really high. It's not going great, but you leave it here in this audience expansion, and Amazon starts finding the demographic that it starts converting for, and naturally it'll actually start coming down to like ballpark range of like a 70 to like a 70% ACoS within this audience expansion or testing period. Okay. So some people call this the discovery phase. If you're familiar with anyone else on Amazon who's talked about the different phases, this is going to also be during launch what they call the discovery phase. I've used that term before. You'll probably hear it in some of my other videos also. Discovery phase is also this audience expansion. Okay. In fact, I have somewhere else on this same slide where I actually talk about the discovery phase. So discovery phase is here testing out the different demographics. Once you kind of flatline here, you kind of get to this cusp right here where you're actually entering an optimization phase, and you can actually change potential bidding strategies. You can change it from maybe a fixed bid if you're starting with a fixed bid, or if you're doing a dynamic bid up and down, you can change to dynamic down, which is normally an optimization phase. And then you kind of optimize and you get rid of ones that you're like, okay, this one doesn't produce enough sales for me to really like, and I'll remove that keyword, and I'll remove this keyword in my campaigns. Then it eventually comes down to where you kind of have your campaigns that actually do pretty well. And sometimes, like I said, this is a broad, if yours is a broad market competitor, then your audience expansion, this is actually very small funnel. Like instead of it being this big thing that you actually narrow down, like you whittle away, it actually could stay pretty firm. But if you ever get down to the scale phase and you're here and you're like, hey, I've optimized my listing so good, I've got a 10% ACoS, I'm not a like a top competitor. This happens a lot where some clients come to us and they say, hey, we have optimized our bid so well that we have a really low spend. And it's like, okay, great. How are your sales? And if they're not ranked at the top of page one, of course, they're not going to have a whole lot of sales, but they're like, but I got a good ACoS. And it's like, oh, good for you. Amazon knows who's buying your product, but you're not really supplying much opportunity for the expanded audience. So this actually comes back to, once you're at scale, if you want to actually grow and you want to actually scale, notice you can't really scale at this part of the funnel. It actually doesn't make sense. You actually have to shoot up. Yes, let's say that you cut out this part of the audience, everything that's actually over here as far as in this triangle, instead of this, you actually find out that this is where you scale as far as the farthest width. So then you shoot up just within this range, where essentially you keep the parameters of, hey, up to this edge and to this edge. And as long as we can go up, that's where the scale actually happens. But you do actually kind of have to go back up through the audience expansion and up through the optimization phase to actually do that again. And so it kind of comes in peaks and valleys.
Because the bigger audience is going to be where the bigger sales are. And to kind of recap, at first, it's going to be a discovery phase. Amazon's algorithm is going to be testing out all different types of shoppers, different keywords with their campaigns. Eventually, it will kind of auto optimize. And then you're going to do the fine tune optimizing based on, your goals, ACoS, TACoS, and all of that. Eventually, where you have it more of a hyper targeted keyword and audience. And then you'll see where you are. But it may be, okay, that's a little bit too narrow of an audience.
Right.
Maybe there's not enough sales. Let's make it broader a bit in order to increase our sales velocity and have it reach even more people. That may be a little bit higher ACoS, but it depends on your goals for sales velocity balanced with ACoS.
Right.
So
ACoS, TACoS, whatever that metric is that you're using. Totally.
Yeah. All right. So what is this keyword funnel graph you got going on here?
Oh yeah. So this just kind of goes back to that same, it's that same like audience expansion, optimization, and profit. It's just from a search term perspective. So as far as campaigns, as far as the different type, so discovery or the audience expansion campaign, right? So they're kind of both that top part of the funnel. So you're finding or expanding or testing out certain audiences. And so a lot of times what will happen if you're not doing keyword research, you can actually just start with these types of campaigns. And Amazon, like I believe I've mentioned this in one of the other videos, based on what your generic search terms are, okay, and the SEO that you've actually done, Amazon can have a pretty good idea as to what your product should actually start off with competing against. And so you can start an auto campaign, you can start a category campaign, a complementary or sponsored display audiences, and Amazon will say, okay, well, based on your browse tree node, and then also the search terms and everything else, this is kind of where you should hang out as far as this cluster, right? Since we already talked about cluster, as far as that, we'll kind of stick with that. They'll say this is kind of where you should hang out, and over time, it'll find opportunity in sales that you then say, okay, actually, we are showing up under, if we use that same small flashlight analogy, small flashlight 1500 lumen, that actually we're making sales over here. We can actually take that keyword and move it over here into the research or the test the audience. And we start with a broad match or a phrase match. We start testing out those different terms. It's a much slower process, but you can still do it this way. And so in the research or testing the audience, you're going to find out from the discovery phase or the top part of the funnel, things that are working. You're going to move it to another part of the phase, which is that research. And then they're going to produce really terms. You're going to see data showing, hey, these terms consistently produce sales. Even if they're not at a great ACoS, they could be something that even at a high ACoS we can rank for because our conversion rates are actually okay with it. Especially if we can get top of search bids, and then we test that out a lot more under what is. So you have to be pretty unbiased in these first two parts of it. You're just looking for sale, like click through and sales. Those are really what matter. And then you move it to what is relevant. And then after the relevancy, that's when you start getting a little bit more biased. You say, okay, well, my product isn't this or it's not that. You can do that in these same phases too, as far as if you're selling like a metal flashlight and it's popping up under like plastic flashlight or even some sort of term that you're like, we are not that term. Like, why are we showing up under pogo sticks, right? Something like that. You can clearly remove pogo sticks. That is like use common sense in a lot of these things and get rid of those types of terms. But over here, this is where you're going to find those relevant things. So this is one way to do it without actually doing the keyword research. If you're like, hey, I don't have the time. However, you can fast pace this step by actually doing the keyword research, which is what we do. This is what like the absolute best practice is to do the keyword research ahead of time. You probably should have done before you even created the listing anyways, because you're doing SEO. So why not take it a few steps further and take that same information that you already gathered and produce good ads in relation to that same thing, right? So really it's just about using your time efficiently and doing a little bit more extra, like a little bit extra work to produce heavy lifting right at first so that you can actually kind of skip a huge funnel. Because at first, maybe if you do something like this, the funnel is this big because it's just based off of audiences and category, and that's where Amazon starts. But you can actually say, hey, based on search terms, you can actually potentially narrow that funnel to where it's more like this. You're like, these are the parameters that I want to work with. And so it's more about just training the algorithm in a good way. Does that make sense?
Makes sense.
So I'm okay to probably go away from these slides. I don't know if there's anything here. This is a whole nother thing that we can get into. Well, I mean, maybe I will go into this and you can create another video on this. This goes into this same perspective here.
Mm-hmm.
You'll often hear some experts who talk about buying intent versus just general search terms. Okay. Now, what's interesting on Amazon, okay, Amazon is a platform that has high purchase intent. When someone gets on Amazon, it's very rare that they're just like looking to look. You're going to find those people. There always is, right? But then there are search terms that have higher buying intent. And we're going to stick with the small flashlight analogy. Okay. Someone is like, oh, I'm going camping. I need a small flashlight. They type in small flashlight. As soon as small flashlight pulls up, you see tons and tons and tons of different types of flashlights. They might browse around a little bit and go, I've now realized I do want a small flashlight, but I'm going to attach a longer tail opportunity there. And I am going to actually go for a small flashlight, 1500 lumens, right? Or 2000, 10,000 lumens, whatever it is. Or maybe they want a tactical flashlight of that same capacity or caliber or whatever, right? And so this has to do with all the search terms. This would be small flashlight. Typed in small flashlight, it's usually the broader terms or the kind of the root terms are going to be short tail, 1 to 3 keywords, depending on the category and the search volume associated with that. A lot of times what you'll find is the higher the search volume in the ranges of like upwards of 10 to 15,000 plus, you will find subsets of the market who are looking for not just that product, but actually a subset. And that comes down to, is your product actually a subset product or is it a general product, right? So and we covered that previously. So is it actual all the search terms, small flashlight, or is it small flashlight, 10,000 lumens, or the highest intent, small flashlight, 10,000 lumens, waterproof, right? Because they're looking at multiple features, and if your product fits within those features, you want to show up there. And so you can actually do different. So a lot of times people will refer to this as the highest buying intent. A lot of times is actually in the longest tail search term. And with exact campaigns, if we come back to here, it can be really hard. If you're working off of this type of a system, it is really hard to find exact campaigns that are going to get traction on every single long tail opportunity, which means if you are operating on this type of a phase where you are only wanting to hang out where there's relevancy and where there's high buying intent, you're going to have a lot of exact terms and you're going to utilize the phrase match campaigns different than almost any other strategy. Okay. So this actually comes down to your high buying intent exact terms. you're going to put in there consistent ones that have good search volume, because otherwise you're not going to get a whole lot of traction. The phrase match is actually going to be kind of at the top part of this buying intent, just in case you're going to find a few every single month that there's no way that you would even possibly have an exact campaign that would actually cover that. And the only way to do that is by putting a phrase in there that says, if someone ever puts in the phrase small camping flashlight 1500 lumens or 15,000 lumens, I want to pop up for that. If they add anything before or after that, I want that phrase to be covered. You're actually going to use that as a conversion campaign rather than an audience test campaign or a research campaign. It's just a different way of harvesting and a different mindset that's associated with it. Because a lot of times, if you're doing a research and you're actually funneling it down here, what a lot of people will suggest, this is the type of structure that you're going to do, is to actually negate the search terms that are coming in here as you pull them into your exact campaign. Whereas if you are actually doing kind of an expansion of your exacts, you're actually not going to negate those terms, because you want them to show up in the phrase match campaigns, because those are going to be your long tail buying intent opportunities. Does that make sense? I worry that this might be a little too high level. It might be a little too high level, Riley.
No, we're good. We want to be high level. We're going high level.
Be high level. We're going to be high level. Okay. I'm good with presentations. I'm okay to move away.
Okay, cool. So that is keyword, Amazon, algorithm, funnels, how it works, the philosophy behind it. So let's move into, you just received a new product and you're doing the keyword research using Helium 10. What is your thought process and what are the steps that you follow? All right, and we have Amazon expert Ryan Logan here. So Ryan, take me through your thought process on your steps when you get a new product to launch, keyword research, Helium 10. How do you set all that up and what do you do so you can teach me the ways of the Jedi?
Ways of the Jedi. Yeah, so if I'm taking a product at launch, brand new, then the main thing that I want to know is in very simple form, okay, what we do need to have fairly well understood is what is the product and what is not. Okay, best way to do that is through keyword research. Now, what's nice is that you don't necessarily have to reinvent the wheel. In fact, a lot of competitors, especially high level and high performing competitors, will likely have sorted out a lot already. So I use Helium 10. I prefer Helium 10. I know, Riley, you prefer Jungle Scout. I know that there are even more different softwares out there that I don't use. But in regards to this, we're going to keep on with the sticky wallet or phone stick-on wallet. But what we're actually going to look for right now is we just type in phone wallet stick-on using the Helium 10 expansion. We can see that this actually is one of the highest search volume terms. We're going to discount color. We're going to discount ring. We don't even want that in there. Another thing to actually have that's really important is a little sheet. And so this is a sheet of my own making. I usually use this to formulate my thoughts. I've had people ask me before if I stick to this sheet specifically. Every single one of my sheets have a slight customization based on the type of product, but this is what I basically start off on. And so I'll actually start off with this same format and then expand it out for the different campaigns and what I'm looking for. If there are certain negative phrases, negative exacts, or negative product targets that I absolutely do not want in any of my broad or category type campaigns or automatic campaigns, then I make sure to put those in there. Because I know this audience already, I know that I will probably put magnetic in here under negative phrase because it's a stick-on wallet, not a magnetic wallet. And those are actually two different sub niches of keywords for like phone wallet, right? So there's phone wallet, which is going to be the root term, and there's subsections of that. And so even though phone wallet would be like what somebody originally would be like, oh, that's the search term, it actually it is, but it isn't, because we fit more in a sub niche. And so if you have a good amount of search volume associated with a more exact or more precise sub niche, then that actually gets replaced as your root search term. And then we want to make sure that we negate certain things like magnetic completely from any of the campaigns that ever get launched. Another thing to keep track of, I usually do this more for thoughts, but if I find certain niche keywords that are valid, that I'm like, oh, people type in this a lot, or this ends up as a whole bunch of search terms, I just like to keep track of that for myself. One, as an advertiser, it's important for me to know words in the category. Okay. As a seller of your product, you should also become familiar with different niche words associated with it, such as in the baby category. This was one that blew my mind. In the baby category, people will actually type in little one. I couldn't believe that. It's like when people were confused about if they should type in toddler or something, they actually just replaced toddler with little one. That one blew my mind, right? But that's a niche word that I had to become familiar with in my process of keyword research. And so you should find different niche words and just keep track of that for your own thoughts. Different competitor names, keep track of those. And the reason why you want to do that is because if you're ever doing back-end search terms or trying to get different search terms in your listing for other SEO related things, you have to pay attention to those competitor names, because Amazon can currently flag you if you are not careful with competitor names. Seems like there's a little bit of a potentially a little bit of a lag going on here, right? I don't know if you're seeing that too. That's okay. Are you seeing
that? The mouse lag,
okay.
Yeah, you're good.
Yeah. Mouse lag is okay. Then I will move on. All right, so we're gonna start off right here. We're gonna start off at ground zero. I followed this same format. I've been following it for years. And one of the things I really like is that there is a PPC expert who actually does really good SEO research. If you're familiar with Stephen Pope, most people are. The guy's fantastic. I do tend to follow his approach pretty heavily. I was actually following it before he even produced it. I mean, be that as it may, so I kind of follow his same approach here. There's different phases of SEO. And so in this kind of gathering data, this is actually a step zero for him. So he talks about SEO phase 1, 2, 3, and 4, and there's actually an SEO phase 0. And so essentially what we're doing, if you have ever followed his thoughts or his approach, this is an SEO phase 0 that we're actually going to be doing. And I'm going to show you how to do that part, but also build your search term list off of that as far as relevancy, because you're going to use that for not just SEO, but also for your PPC campaigns. And so, like I said, we'll just start here. Phone, wallet, stick on. So as our search, we're going to come in here. I use Helium 10. So pull the Helium 10 tool using X-ray. Maybe that didn't load. So the best way to actually scrape the data while this is loading, the best way to scrape the data is to take it from competitors who are doing well. Okay, so the easiest way, what you're looking for is, if you want to go down here, I sometimes will use the sponsored products, but sometimes I'll weed those out completely. But I want to find people who are top competitors, and I'll click on them as I go through and say, okay, this guy has a good amount of revenue, a good amount of sales. He's obviously at the top of page 1 organically. So is this guy and this guy. Now, one of the things that you want to make sure that you're looking for, especially when you deal with sub niches and breakoffs within the category, okay, is the product similar enough to yours as far as features? Okay. Now, sometimes as far as price range, it's not going to matter. Like when you're within a very low price range, that differentiation matter as heavily. However, for keyword research and for search terms, it does matter, because somebody putting in like silicone versus a spandex wallet, or if they're looking for leather versus silicone, those types of things, those are going to matter. And so if you can narrow this down a little bit better, then that's really good. And so you go through, you can click up to 10. The big thing is to have 10 up here, because it makes, from a ratio standpoint, it makes sense, because essentially what we're going to do is we're going to pull a whole competitor mathematically. Okay. It makes it easier as far as ratios. What I like to do is I'll just actually come over here and I'll just click BSR. That's the easiest way for me to just do it, because they're going to usually have the best stuff just right here. This one is leather. We're going to negate leather out completely from whatever we do. And so I'm not super worried about that. So we do have silicone. We do have this adhesive pack, silicone. So a lot of these are actually silicone. and that's okay. So at this point, I actually am well enough in this category that I'm actually going to use this because people, it depends on how much search terms pop up with silicone. So I will go ahead and actually click on the top 10. If I have some that I don't want, like we don't have a grip holder on the back, then I will bypass that completely. I don't want a ring. Ring is not one that we're okay with on it. Just, oh, that's cool. But what I'm basically going for higher BSR for about 10. Leather. Don't want a clip. I would probably choose that over it. Any of these others that I need to be concerned about. That's a good one. That's a good one. Okay. And so then I will hit run Cerebro. Now, like I said, the reason why it matters for 10 is that mathematically, it's usually good mathematically for most of the categories. This one, there's going to be some exceptions to this rule. Okay. We're going to go ahead and take a break here for a second while I'll just run it again. I don't know why it didn't work. They didn't show under the products. There we go. On one end, you can really only enter up to 10 ASINs anyways for Cerebro. However, the reason why it mathematically works out is what we are looking for is the overlap of search terms, okay? Because we want, you'll see that there's a total of 11,000 keywords here. Sponsored keywords is 3,000, organic 3,000 here. There's plenty of keywords. You're seeing that about a third of it, actually about a quarter of it or so, is being attached for sponsored keywords, and about a quarter of it as well for organic. We're going to see word frequency here, and we're actually going to piggyback a lot off of this word frequency in a way. So essentially what we're going to do is build off this word frequency a little bit, and the best way to do that is from a ratio, right? So it's really easy to divide ratios up if it's even numbers such as 10, okay? What I like to do is I'll come in and just right out the gate, there are thousands and thousands, 11,000 search terms, and there's a whole lot of overlap that you'll actually see amongst all these. So we just want to filter down into two things, the terms themselves, but also the singular words, okay? And so we'll actually go, I'll go and I'll click usually 8 as far as competitive performance. So what I'm saying is that amongst the 10 products, I want terms that at least 8 of all of the 10 are showing up on, okay? So that's my minimum threshold. And that actually filters it down immediately to 280. I will change the search volume because I want that at the very top, I want my search volume to be at the top, okay? So we go like this: phone wallet, card holder for phone case, phone wallet stick on, the phone card holder, credit for cell phone card holder stick on, etc. We have the search volume, we have the keyword sales attributed to that, and then over here you'll actually see, based on those things, the competitor ranking, the competitor performance score. So 8 out of all of the 10 products. So this is what I mean as far as ratios. This is why 10 matters, because I've had people before, it's like, why does 10 matter? What's so special about the 10? It's actually just a ratio thing, where it's basically saying, hey, look, 80%, it's really easy as far as ratio. 80% of the 10 competitors, so 8 out of the 10, really harness this keyword pretty heavily. Okay, and that's for a good BSR. So they are selling well, they have good revenues, they have good ranking, they're top of page a lot of times, they're the top, usually the top 10 ASINs for that. Okay. We have a 10 out of 10, a 10 out of 10, an 8 out of 10, a 10 out of 10, an 8 out of 10, etc. So one of the things that I will come in and see is I will say, okay, based on search volume alone and potential relevancy, you can actually go as low as a 6 just to see if there are things below a 6 or a 5. You can move this around depending on how many of the products are really niched down into similarities to yours. Like as an example, did any of these show up as a 6? There's a 6 right here, iPhone wallet. See, the reason why that's a 6 is that it's like, we're not actually looking for an wallet. We are looking for a stick-on wallet that can work for an iPhone or stick on to an iPhone. Cell phone wallet. So maybe, but that's a little too broad. And a lot of these are actually going to overlap. So I don't really want that, especially in my PPC campaigns. I think that this would be fairly unnecessary. Okay. which is why I will usually come in here and hang around usually an 8 and above as far as the ratio. Now you can go down if you don't find enough volume. There's always exceptions pretty much to every rule. There's a search volume here, and there's still 200 terms, and I'm going to go through, and a lot of these are going to overlap. Now, if we were to flip this and we actually flip it by search volume, you'll also notice there are a whole bunch of zeros here. I am not going to waste my time on PPC campaigns for these. These are going to be what would basically be in potentially a phrase match of some kind. So it's going to be an expanded opportunity. I'm not going to insert a whole bunch of these into my campaigns. In fact, a lot of times I'm going to hang out above something above 100 as far as search volume. Now, you can always create a low search volume campaign that has the lower amount, such as like less than 100. In fact, there are strategies that deal with that, and all these different types of strategies are pretty relevant to the different subcategories, okay, or different niches on Amazon. So there are some where what you want to do is you can break up campaigns according to the search volume and test out how does it do in the different search volume campaigns. And I've done those successfully, and I've had those backfire. That's why I still believe that a lot of times how you set up your campaigns can be category specific. But when I'm in this phase, I'm probably going to limit this to 100 as far as the search volume. And we'll just go there once this processes. All right, so it's processed as of now. I'll funnel this back up to the top. Really didn't eliminate that many. That actually go through. All right, so 228 is still what we're looking for. Now, then what we'll do is I'll do actually two different things on this. One, I'll export this as a CSV file. All right, so we've got the spreadsheet, narrowed it down to 230 search terms. One of the first things I'll come through is organize this how I want it. So in my CSV, the way that I will organize it is I will base it entirely off of basically 4 factors. I'll move this over here, the search volume, by grabbing the column. I'll grab the column over keyword sales. I'll move that as the second. And then lastly, I still want this competitor score. So I will move this right here next to keyword sales. And then the rest of this, I don't actually need, not at least for what I'm doing. Essentially, one of the things that I will actually do at this point is based on the ratios, I will funnel this. So we'll attach a filter. Boom. And then I will actually funnel out. If there were 9s, I'd funnel out 9s as well. I would start off just with just the 10s. And I would say, okay, for all these that are a 10, do I agree with this? Okay, so the way that this should be is that a 10 should be 100, like essentially 100%, right? So if we look at this as far as a ratio, we believe that this should be at the top, especially if it meets 2 metrics. It has the performance score, so we don't necessarily have to change this to competitor performance. We can actually do this as you can call it performance relevancy score. It doesn't really matter. On some of them, I actually even call it a Ryan score, just because I don't actually care what it's called. But the point is that in regards to both SEO and what I'm targeting, I want to make sure that this is relevant. And so little tiny things. So credit card holder for phone, I browse through these and make sure I agree with these statements. So credit card, iPhone card holder, wallet for phone, case stick on, and I just go through every single one of these. So this is where it does become time intensive. Let's see if there's any in here in the top 10. Funny card holder for backup phone. That's one that we don't need. So I would come in here and I would put this as a 1. So yeah, the way that I look at this is 1 to 5 is absolutely no way. If it's way out there, like if I put anything in there between a 1 to a 5, that means it should never even be on my SEO plan or my PPC plan. In fact, I will often take the 1 through 5s. And I'll find like terms in there that I want to add in as far as negative phrases. So 1 to 5 is the no-go. Anything above a 5, so a 6 through a 10 is 6 is the minimum of relevancy, and that's going to be usually 6 and 7s for me are going to be competitor terms. So if we find ones that are like this, a UN, actually don't know what UNC card holder. I don't think that's a name brand, but for the sake of this, it's it has something specific that I know that our product doesn't have, I would put that as a 6 because the rest of it is still relevant, but that's a 6. Sticky wallet case. This is one thing that knowing this niche, when you first starting out ads, things like this would actually fall through the cracks. Riley, you know this product as well. Is the wallet a case itself?
No, it's not a case.
It is not a case. And so this is sometimes where when doing keyword research, it's close enough because we're looking for a stick-on wallet for the back. A case is different than a sticky wallet case. Does that make sense, everybody? Sticky wallet case is totally different than a stick-on wallet for a phone case, right? So I would actually put 6 still because it has mostly relevant search terms, but it's actually not where I want to hang out. I want to hang out most of my SEO, most of my PPC between probably an 8 to a 10, 9 and 10 if I can actually make it. So I go and I actually do this for every single search term that's actually here. BC, no idea, so I'll say 6. Card holder for phones. Cell phone adhesive pocket, that's still relevant. Stick on personalized, we are not a personalized option. Phone pockets stick on, that's going to be a 1. I have no idea what pockets is, but that's relevant. Maybe it's pop socket, like a misspelling. Card holder, back of phone, stickable card holder. I would put that as a 6 because it's potentially relevant, but it's not hyper relevant. And from an SEO perspective, that might still fly. Card holder for iPhone. That's what's hard about these terms. Because it's 100, I'm just going to put it as a 1. I don't actually care. That's low enough volume that I'm not super stuck on iPhone sticky wallet. UNC card. Phone case card pocket. Doesn't make any sense. And there's 200. Phone case card pocket. What on earth? So if I see this popping up consistently,
yeah, card pocket
example,
is relevant. It's a little pocket for your credit cards.
Is that the way to look at that? So if at any time there is a keyword that you're not totally sure about, like for example, Riley and I were debating about the same one. So Riley says yes, I would say no. If you're ever unsure, go back and search it on Amazon and see if it's like for like products. And if it is, then you're probably okay. Because this could be something where a term like this is somebody who they don't know what they're looking for, but it's something like this. And they're like, yeah, card phone holder, right? So there's been times when everyone has typed something like that into Amazon because they know what it looks like. And they're like, but I don't know exactly what that is because not everyone knows the root search term. So coming back here, card stick-on holder. Most of these are going to be, I'm actually going to say that's a 6. Actually, we'll do this. And now people actually put that on there that's actually important. Backup phone card holder. I would put this as an 8 because one of the things to pay attention to is that we are actually a stick on. And so some of these I might actually do card holder for phone. I would actually probably put it in as 8s because stick on.
Some people might call it a wallet sticker.
Yeah, we'll keep with 8. iPhone card holder, that's still an 8 as it's not hyper specific enough for what I would actually be looking for. Phone wallet stick on. Card holder for phone case, still see that's probably an 8. Credit card holder for cell phone. Stick on wallet for phone case. So here we go. So now we actually have some slight variance. Now what I'll come in here and I'll do is I'll actually sort this out. And I'll get rid of the 10s. And knowing that we started off with 8s, we'll actually come over here. Now there's still quite a bit of terms. And so in order to speed up this process, I mean, we're still looking at 178 different terms here. I'm really only going to do it, at least for right now, for these first couple terms right here. So phone wallet, because I know, actually we'll keep that as an 8. Card holder for phone case, phone card holder, credit card holder for cell phone card holder stick on, because it has a stick on, I would actually put that as a 10 because it's more hyper specific to what we are looking for. iPhone wallet stick on, same thing. So phone card holder. And so if you're starting to notice different trends, you can actually come in here and write on stick and sort by anything that has stick on wallet, sticky wallet, case wallet sticker. Put that at a 6. But what you can do is if this is the case, you can actually potentially change a lot of these naturally to a 10, because the stick on, if you start noticing the stick on is really what we're looking for, then you can actually sort by that here. Kind of go through there. iPhone, I know I did just say pink. Pink is not really what we're looking for. Silicone, not necessarily directly what we're looking for, because some of these are still relevant to a degree, but not exactly. White, times 0.6. A lot of this part is really just subjective. Yeah, for right now, we'll just kind of leave that there. But you should actually spend the time to actually go through this. Stick on sell. I have no idea what that is. I think that's too iffy to really spend money on. Wallet, stick on card holder for phone, stick on wallet. Yeah, I feel pretty good about that. So then we'll come back over here to 8s. With sticky wallet, I see. So we'll select all, and that has narrowed down some of the search now, or some of the count to 100. Like I said, I'll probably actually just adjust these. Instead of just being an 8, some of these, because they're high volume and I know they're actually root terms, I'll probably just to 9s. So for the sake of time, we'll just iPhone wallets. I'm not going to do that. That's actually going to be a 7. All right, I'm just going to stop as of right now. Okay, so having done that, I've now sorted out some of these things in my 1s. If anything's a 1, I'm going to actually come in here and say, okay, I have some keywords, and also through the process of this keyword research, I've actually already found some things that I know that I don't want. So a negative phrase, like I said, I know we're not magnetic. We are not silicone. We are not leather. And then we are going to add in, we are not funny. We are not, what was one of the other ones? Personalized. Pocket stick on. I know we kind of argued over those ones, but that's fine. So really those are going to be some of those negative ones. And then if some of these were negative exact, we can also come and take these. If we were sure that these were ones that we wanted as negative exact, we can actually put those in right here as negative exact. There we go. And if there's any negative targeting for sure that we want to do, then we can actually get rid of. In this situation, I now essentially have what I believe are my terms organized pretty well. And so a lot of times what I'll actually do is I'll then keep here, and then I'll go from largest to smallest. And this SEO wise is where I want to hang out. So I want to have all my 10s there. So I'll usually come and take these all the way down to my 6s, and I'll just keep those as part of my SEO phase. And I'll just put those, usually I'll put those over here somewhere. So I can just have access to those. You can obviously keep those over here, especially if you're doing actually SEO. This is another place that you can actually put those right here. Oh, that was very unorganized. But you can actually add that information over here. You add a column on the right. Maybe that's a better place to put it. I don't know why I'm doing that here. It's not a big deal. This is part of an SEO phase 0, and you still hadn't created like the title, bullet points, etc. This phase 0 will actually help you to know where to put some of these other terms. As of right now, we're not going to go into that because this is PPC related. With this same thing right here, I've now exported that. I now have kind of the terms that I want to look at. There are some things that I do want to also make sure of over here. A couple other things that you can get out of the way right away is different product targets. What I will then do is I will find ones that I believe are hyper relevant. If they're not hyper relevant, I'll actually go and delete them. So I actually, as an example with this, I would actually come in here and filter results. A lot of times I'll come in and I'll just actually hide the sponsored products from results. So that shows any of these. Before I do that, SP, this means that it's a sponsored product ad that's popping up. I will come in and, oops, I did it again. Filter results, and I will hide the sponsored product, and I'll apply that as a filter, and that eliminates some of the ASINs right out of the gate that I'm actually viewing. And then I would come down and I would just see if it is close enough to mine that I would actually want to advertise for it, or if I wanted to break up the different ASINs according to different things. If I was trying to avoid all leathers, then I would choose all leathers, and any that I thought was not relevant to what I am doing, I'd look at all the pictures. If I was said I was okay with, oh, that was another one that in the PPC that we want as a negative would actually be ring. If right now, and we had just decided that leather for sure we don't want, but we want some of these other ones, then any that are leather, I'll probably do a ring as well. Get rid of the ring, leather, snap. I don't want to snap. I don't want that as a card holder. Good and good. No. And so then I would delete these. I'd remove those, and I would download this as another ESP report. And pull those ASINs. And sometimes you'll have a lot more ASINs than this that you'll actually pull. And I would put these under my my product targets. There's my ASIN. Okay, so that is also part of that same process. I can usually come away from this. I don't actually need this a whole lot anymore. Now I have this data exported as far as right here, and a lot of this has already been filtered out. And so one of the things that I'll usually do is I'll come and I'll hit export data again for I want the generic terms or the search terms to also reflect accurately the pool of terms that I'm going to try to feed Amazon with my PPC. And so I'll go to copy to Frankenstein, and this is what Frankenstein, and this is also part of, this is where this part overlaps. So this right here is SEO phase 0, organizing the search terms. Excuse me, organizing search terms to what I want for potential SEO as far as phrases, and then also what I'm going to most likely use in my name. This over here is where we SEO phase 0, and we actually integrate to phase 1. So we take pretty much anything that Amazon said as far as competitor score was 8 and above, and we can even limit that to, and we actually hit process. Now, what Frankenstein does is it takes any of these terms, and we will likely want to remove common words is usually a good one. And so it'll take every single one of these as far as all the characters and the words, and it will condense them into their singular term. Now, one of the things that it doesn't do, okay, it does not remove plurals or any type of added on for a word, which a lot of times we can go through. Now, in the backend search terms, we are limited to actually 250 characters. Now, 250 characters is not, we can negotiate that around a little bit. Not all the time. Oh, it looks like they've actually updated this here. So maybe Helium 10 has updated this, but it used to be that this was actually wrong because characters don't include spaces. Okay, yeah, so this still is wrong. So right now, these characters are including spaces. So that's one of the things to pay attention to, is that if you limited this down to, as an example, we limited it down to 250. Oh, that was way too much. We limit it down to about 250. So this wouldn't just be 237 because we actually have empty spaces in here, spaces between each one of these. Helium 10 is actually counting that as a character count, but on Amazon.com or in Amazon Seller Central, Amazon does not count the spaces or commas against your character count. And so really what you can actually get away with on something like this is usually you can somewhere between 260 on the Helium 10, what they would consider 260 characters, to upwards of about 280, depending on how many different spaces are actually spaced out between all these keywords. So that is something to be very hyper aware of when you're actually running this as far as SEO phase one. So the very first thing that I'll come through and do is we'll get rid of anything that we absolutely know is not relevant. So now remember, with SEO phase one, we are trying to get as broad as we possibly can as far as SEO. We want to show up anywhere and everywhere that we possibly can as far as SEO, even if we're going to get more hyper specific with PPC. So we can say, hey, we're more relevant for these terms. We want to be indexed for as many terms as we possibly can, and any variation of those terms as well, but we still want to be specific in a way. So we'll come in, and the first two things are either I'll usually get rid of our colors that are irrelevant, or brand names. Okay, like I said, you have to be careful with brand names. They can come back and bite you pretty hard, and so you have to be very careful about those. So first thing we're going to look at is yellow. Kappa Theta, don't know what that is. In addition, one of the other things to remember is that these are actually organized by opportunity for search terms or for search volume. So down here at the bottom, this was actually 101 search volume, right? That's why I keep it organized in this format. This had what was it? Was it 101? If we format it the other way, I want to say it was 101. Bottom line, it was filtered by highest search volume opportunity to lowest search term opportunity. So starting at the bottom and actually ticking off things that might be less of an opportunity is okay. So XR, this is actually going to reference iPhone. Boot, I don't know what that's in reference to. Business, we can remove that. Attachment, cars. Personalized, we've already kind of decided that personalized isn't actually what we're looking for. Marvel, Sleek, BC, MCU. This is potentially, Ring was one of them, that's right. Ring, I'd almost be okay with as far as an SEO opportunity, even if I don't want to go after it as far as for my sponsored products. I might still actually want it as far as search terms. I don't know. Gecko is. I think Alpha Phi is actually a brand name. Harley Quinn, no thanks. Now, I am getting rid of colors. If your product is heavy color option and like that actually is an important to your terms, then leave the color in there. As with any of these general rules, like I go through so far as they are relevant to my process. X, because normally I would actually get rid of X. However, iPhone X, I would actually probably leave that. I'm pretty sure that's a brand name. Waller, I'm okay with actually leaving misspells. Funny. White, holders, money. Top home. Holder, that's a misspell. Pocket for wallet, credit. Holder, misspell. Pink. Because ours is black, I'm actually probably going to leave black there. I'll probably leave iPhone. Actually, I won't leave iPhone. In this subcategory, there are, you can actually click insert into the backend opportunity where you can say it's compatible with, and you can actually list all the different types of phones that it actually is. And so that will actually, as far as the browse nodes are concerned, it will be relevant in some way to the browse tree node. And because iPhone can get, they might come after you in that way because it's a branded term, a pretty heavily branded term. Amazon will likely be forgiving in this one. I don't recall this one specifically. So for the sake of this video, I'm going to remove this. And if I do have iPhone in the back of your search term routing and it's working, so be it. Okay. So after I've gone through and definitely got rid of those, we're now down to 355 characters. Now comes the next phase, which Amazon has said actually again and again in regards to the search terms, the plurals don't matter. So phone versus phones, wallet versus wallets. Even in it, usually you can use the concept of how the exact campaigns work, where it's phone, wallet, card, holder. As an example, if I put this in as an exact campaign, an exact match in a campaign for a long tail, Amazon can still technically attach filler words such as with, a, for, that type of thing, right? So those can technically still be attached sometimes to an exact term. And so those same policies also work with these as far as search terms related in the back end, including plurals. If I do phone, wallet, card, holder in an exact campaign, for an exact match keyword that the campaign is performing at that level. And so after I've done this initial, a lot of times will actually go through and I'll revisit the misspellings and find out if I even want that in there, or go over any that I missed, like Miss Cat. I have no idea what that is. UNC Cactus, get rid of any that I really am not in love with. And then I would also go through MSU, attachment cars, stickable XR, probably those. All right, so then I would come through and say if wallet is here, and I go from the backwards this way. If wallet is in here and I see wallets with an S, I don't really have to have that in there. In order to meet my character count, I'll go through, I'll do it last because I still think if I can get rid of a lot of these extra ones that are less relevant, I'm okay to keep it there just in case, but realistically it doesn't have to be there. And so wallet and wallets I got rid of. One of the things that I will enter in here, because it is normally a common word, is on. I'm actually going to put in stick on. Stick E, which is different back pockets. I'm going to get rid of holders, as that's a plural. Let's see, card and cards. Phone and phones. I'm probably going to get rid of elephant. I don't know what that's in reference to. So now that I'm close to this character count, there's different ways to do this. You can actually pull up like an actual character count tool. I haven't used any of these. Usually I'll actually just use Amazon's terms. 83 characters. Oh, maybe that actually was right over in Frankenstein. That says 285. No, I don't think that's right. Spaces is 43, so that should be down. All right. The best way for me to actually do this, I'm just going to go through it. What I like to do, just because it's cut and dry, is after where it's within a range of 280, like within that 280 range, or 260 to 280 characters, or give or take a little bit, I'll come back into Seller Central. And I'll actually go into the backend search terms directly. We'll do the 4-pack, as I don't know if that has actually been done. Product details. All right, so it has to be under 250 bytes. Oh, this goes back to, I apologize, I did mess up on this. It actually is 250 bytes, not 250 characters. And that's where the problem is. I should have actually typed in, I'm not even gonna worry about that. I already have it here. So it has to be under 250 bytes and not characters. So characters include space. Bytes do not include space or comma. So I apologize for that earlier. Anyone who heard me earlier, they're probably like, this guy has no idea what he's talking about. I apologize. Characters do include spaces, but bytes do not. And so this says it has to. So then what I'll come in and do is I'll come in and remove additional terms that I say maybe I don't need.
You can remove hard, cloth, and you can keep cloth, but remove hard. You can remove rubber.
Because we have X here, I'm probably going to remove that because that's already in your, unplug that, and also your XR as well. Hold on. Sorry about any misspells. Sleek. Cars. All right, so the warning sign is no longer popping up. So that means it's under 250 or 250 bytes. If we come in here, actually do this, actually see, it's pretty interesting. I don't know how that relates, but somehow that's under 250 bytes as well. And there we go. Don't have any reason for that. Now, one of the things that I didn't miss here, one of the things that I do also consider is I do want to look for Spanish search terms as far as in the SEO. This has always been best practice. Usually what I'll do is I'll come to the very, very top and I'll say, what is the most important thing, like phone wallet stick on or phone card holder. And I'll take these two and we just do English to Spanish. And enter in the text. And I take this and I put it over here in a Frankenstein. And because that is a potential high volume term, I will actually, and it's very hyper specific to what I want, I will actually take this over a preference of some of these smaller volume terms if it fits, if it doesn't fit with what I want. Like caddy, I think pocket is already in here, so we can actually move pockets. That will still, that should still put us under that character count as well, or that, I keep saying character count, the byte count. There we go. Yep, still under the byte count, so we're good. I would hit save and submit. And then what I do is I'll normally take those same terms and I'll put those in here and then change this to where it cuts off there so it doesn't block out any of these. So that is SEO phase 0/1. As far as making for the specific, the generic terms, I want to make sure that those are rooted and indexed into what I'm also going to be doing for PPC. Okay. Now, in regards to SEO phases, there is also phase like 2, 3, and 4, which have to do with actually taking the actual terms and as a term to the SEO. Some of this stuff should already be done in your title, points, descriptions, and actually doing that. So that's already still a best practice. We do want to make sure that the generic terms has that in there. And then also in A+ content, you can actually litter these terms in here, which is also another reason why you have them as a 10. You want to make sure to insert those where it makes sense. Now comes, in my opinion, the fun part of building out the campaigns, remembering the different campaign structures. So we have broad, phrase, and exact. And then I have over here one-word campaign. So the one-word campaigns a lot of times are going to be campaigns that have high search volume that I want to narrow down and see if I can rank for those. I want to see how I convert with those. Usually in a product launch, I'm not necessarily trying to rank right away. I'm trying to build relevancy and opportunity there. And so what I'm looking for with those is just control. In addition, I'm going to be bidding a lot higher on my top of search on these type of terms. And I'm usually going to be setting a certain budget on those, which means I'm going to set a cap where maybe I get for my more aggressive campaigns, like my higher top of search bids, I only want to spend $20 a day amongst all those different campaigns. I'm going to set a budget in those campaigns for that with a cost per click and an increased rate top of search ratio or placement bid where I can max that out. And then afterwards, I'm still going to keep a lot of times those same keywords from a one word campaign. I will keep them actually over in an exact and a phrase. And the reason I call this kind of a waterfall effect, where as far as budget is concerned, I know I'm going to run out of budget on my one word campaigns, and I'm okay with that. They're going to have high click-through rate, and they're going to have a high relevancy as far as Amazon is concerned. And I'm going to be getting top of search. I will likely put top of search in these over here, but I'm going to be doing it at lower cost per click opportunity. Usually what I'll do is for any that are over 1,000, just pretty easy. I'm like, hey, I'm probably going to create one word campaign specifically for this. And I'll put those in here. Now, some exceptions to this are as explained in an exact campaign. Just remember the formats. Okay. So phone, wallet, stick on. If there is a if there's a similarity between phone, wallet, stick on and another one, it will actually duplicate itself within the same campaign because filler words can actually be placed out or plurals can actually put in here. So I'd start off with phone. There's no one there. Phone card holder. Put it there. Stick on wallet. Stick on phone wallet. Stick on wallet. No. We're probably good on those. Okay. A lot of these are going to be a little bit different. In the campaigns, you can brand names in there. Just a heads up. You can't put them in for SEO, but you can actually target campaigns, or you can have keywords in your campaigns that are brand related or related in some way. Amazon doesn't have a problem with it because that's more of a competitor aspect rather than trying to take advantage of trademark or branding. So I'd probably do the same because of the search volume here. And in order to try and control things a little bit more, I would probably these. If these are the keywords that I really want to go after as far as exact, like I said, I would actually duplicate this, make sure they're over an exact and a one word campaign as well. So this is all in a single campaign. These are a whole bunch of one word campaigns, a single campaign that is only targeting phone, wallet, stick on, a campaign that's only targeting phone card holder, stick on, wallet for phone case, etc. Okay. And then this is going to be a campaign that has all of these search terms in it. And I'll probably put all of these because this is quite a bit of search volume, 40,000. This is actually going to equal probably millions of impressions, multi-millions of impressions over a single month. Amazon's reference to an impression versus a search is totally off, totally different. Because of the amount of search volume, I would probably break up into 2 different exact pool campaigns, maybe even 3 based on search volume. And so just a format, easy. These ones are going to be probably 9 to 300. We'll put all of these over into a secondary. And then from that on, so this is kind of that same. Yeah. I want to make them there too. Nines would also be over here. Phone wallet. And the broad and the phrase match, this is where, so these are going to be more hyper specific, where I'm going to try and control spend and also some hardcore relevancy as far as at the bottom of that funnel, right? So that this is going to be what I anticipate being the bottom part of that funnel. Now the broad and the phrase are going to be the mid to the top part of that funnel. And so I'm looking for root search terms. So this is going to be, usually there's going to be a lot of search volume associated with it. So I would actually say, hey, this is a 10. So I'm actually going to phrase on both of these, or broad and phrase match on both of these. Phone wallet stick on. Now phone wallet stick on for a broad campaign or for a broad target is going to do any variation of this term in any sequence. Phrase match is going to be that exact sequence with either before or after, with also plurals and filler words attached. Phone card holder stick on, because card has a different term in it. I actually would do that. Possibly put a lot of these in there too. So going through and choosing the terms that you actually want in part of these campaigns, I do want to make sure that I also get my 9s in here as well, especially the high one. So phone wallet, that would probably be okay. These are pretty broad. There's a lot of search volume and a lot of sales here. So I would still probably put these up here. Again, a lot of these are still dependent on, actually we're just going to do this. That's probably how I would format these campaigns, at least just looking at these. And then based on this, like I said, in a broad campaign, this is what I would target. I will usually set parameters in here. So I actually create a note and I will do the campaign name. So if the campaign was, like I said, it usually follows the same shorthand structure here, where it would be like sticky wallet, ASIN, put in the ASIN, and then broad pool. So I'd follow something like that. Actually, during launch, where I'm not trying to get as hyper specific, I'm actually trying to get as many terms as I can. I'd follow something very similar for, instead of broad, I would do phrase. And then I would do an exact pool 1. Now I would come down here to my secondary exact pool 2. Then comes the one word campaign. So on these ones, it's going to be different. I'm going to say it's going to be, I usually do it one word, sticky wallet, ASIN, and then I actually put the term in there. So this takes a little bit longer as far as preparation. And you can format these differently. You can add a whole nother column next to it if you want to, and actually just insert what these are. But this way, on a campaign level, I want to be able to see what that keyword is without having to go into that campaign. Because in doing a one-word campaign, that's a freaking nightmare. And so if you're ever doing an alpha campaign, you want to actually have the term associated with it. Or if you're ever testing out a term, you want to be able to look at that term, because sometimes people, like I've actually done alpha campaigns or one word campaigns for a phrase match, because I want to test out all the different variations of that phrase match, and it'll be just a single keyword in there. And I want to see how that goes specifically without any other things referencing those campaigns. And then I'll put in other parameters in here into all of these, such as a standard cost per click bid, top of search bid, and the bidding strategy. Those are my notes as well. And so that I have those as reference, because I want to build those out before actually making the campaigns. So as an example, a bidding strategy for a broad, at least at first, I would probably put, usually I've really been liking doing fixed bids during launch, because I just want as many impressions and sessions to get there as I possibly can. And I can sometimes get those at a lower cost per click. So I have 30.35, top of search of 35%. And then I would follow this very similar strategy here. Oops. If I'm doing 35, I would actually come in here. I'd probably still keep it fixed in the phrase, and I would do maybe a 45, and then I would do probably maybe a 55 here. I talked in a previous video about the different ranges and the rule of thumb that I use for that. In my exact pools, I would actually come in, and because I've got some one word campaigns that I want to target and actually test out, I will adjust this to roughly 75 to maybe 85%. I'll probably do 85% here. And I want it to be above the 45 here. So I'm probably looking at like a 55 or a 65, knowing that I'm increasing my cost per click bid there in a fixed option as well. And then I'll do that same exact thing for this format here. And then in my one-word campaigns, this would be the same thing. I'd probably do, if I want to do the fixed bid, I can adjust it. I want to dynamic up and down if I want to, whatever. But I would probably increase this to about 75 or 85. And then I would have a minimum of 100%. It's easy to adjust 100% because you know exactly, okay, that means my cost per click bid is not going to be just one on top of search, is actually going to be $1.50, right? It's just times 2. And so starting off, it's really easy just to use that metric there. The other thing that I will do here as far as product targets, if I've already sorted these out, I'll actually use them. I'll use this for a product targeting campaign. Insert note. I will do, this will actually be a PT pool. PT pool. Oh, and when I say ASIN here, that's the placeholder of the actual ASIN of the product. Still a fixed bid. So this could be PT pool expanded. So I think in another video I mentioned that you can either choose an expanded or an exact. During launch, I'm looking for expanded opportunity. I want to find out different ASINs. So I would actually choose PT pool expanded. You can also create one that's not. Cost per click bid, I would keep this low. We'll always start off with like 20 or 25 cents on this. I do 0 top of search or other placement at all. And then when I create the campaign, for these broad and the phrase matches, or for any of the other campaigns, I do make sure to insert any negative phrase matches or negative product or negative act matches and even negative product matches that I want to, including if I'm doing an automatic campaign, I'm already testing out these as far as expanded audiences. So sometimes I'll take these and I'll insert those into product targets into the automatic campaign. That was a lot. So Riley, as you were in this, I just say as of right now, I'm pretty much done with this. Through the different SEO phases, I will come through and I will adjust my backend search terms into phases. Because once you're indexed for a term, you don't necessarily have to keep it jumbled together without its sequence. And so I'll start replacing these different sequences in backend search terms, in titles, bullet points. I'll be including them or swapping them out or replacing them over time in my A+ content and product descriptions, etc. And that's SEO phases 2, 3, and 4, as Stephen Pope. I actually totally agree with that. It's a great practice to use. Anything that you can use as far as tricks for SEO are very powerful because organic really matters. The whole point of PPC is to help boost opportunity and ranking, right? So we are testing out here the opportunity for ranking and also total sales and getting visibility. I think that's it.
Awesome. So that was the prep to prepare keywords for putting them into the PPC campaigns in that good old ads dashboard, which we did in a separate video. And also in separate videos, we'll be building out the listing in terms of back-end listing optimization and front-end listing optimization. So yeah, that was a very detailed tutorial / training.
I don't know how they feel, but I'm tired. That was a lot.
Hey, that's what you got to do. That's what it takes. It takes hours.
That's what it takes. This is why people hire us to do it. Yeah. It's because it takes amount of time, and especially if you're not familiar with it. This took me an hour. I have some experience in this already because I've already done products for you, so I knew already what to sift out. When you're starting from scratch, sometimes that can be hard. That's why people will sometimes just be lazy and they'll say, okay, I'm just going to start and do an automatic campaign, a category campaign, and a broad match and just see what happens. And that's okay. It can work. As long as you've done proper SEO, you can still get traction that way. It's just a lot slower. I can usually kickstart traffic here as far as opportunity and have a blow up for a launch. The other way, you can still get traction, but it's very minimal control. It takes time.
Absolutely. All right. Questions, let us know. Thanks, Ryan, and see you guys in the next video.
Yeah. All right.
right, and welcome to this tutorial on how to set up Amazon PPC ads for a new product launch. So I'm going to hand it over to Amazon ads expert Ryan Logan, and he'll walk through his thought process, his clicks, what he does if I'm a client and I just gave him my new product. So yeah, Ryan, off to you. Take me through it.
Yeah, so the very first thing that I actually go through and do is what I call a PPC audit. In fact, I think many people actually call it that. I do a little bit more in depth than a lot of others in the way that I want to make sure that the listing is also in alignment with what I'm doing with my PPC. And we went over this in another video where we actually go through how to do the keyword research, and then also making sure that the listing has that data as well as far as in the SEO. With that being done, then comes the next step of actually launching the PPC. If a product is brand newly launched, the biggest thing that it needs impressions. And Amazon's algorithm is sometimes not trained to actually just immediately out the door give a newly launched product impressions. So over in Seller Central, go under advertising and click on Campaign Manager. And in Campaign Manager, so over here it says create campaign. You're going to click on that. Now there's three different types. There's sponsored product campaigns, sponsored brand campaigns, and sponsored display campaigns. You can actually scroll through and Amazon will actually show you here highlighted what these actually are. Right now, we're mainly just going to use the sponsored product. These are all related to search terms, and we want to actually try and focus our efforts on staying up here. Okay, so we want to actually get on the top of search. That's where we want to be. So do that. We come in and we hit continue. Select the product that we are going to be advertising, and so you can click here. You can click add all variations, and they'll all pop up. The other option is you can enter a list. So we're going to stick with just this 4-pack. Now, this is one thing that not very many people really understand about how Amazon works. But as explained to you over here, the listing SEO and the browse nodes actually builds a relevancy. Okay. And depending on how that is, the automatic campaign, its whole thing is that it actually pulls from that relevancy that your product has already. So whatever you put in the generic search terms and whatever you put in the category, that's where the automatic campaign actually starts. Now there are different targeting groups. You can just set a default bid, and you can change that however you want, or you can set the bids by targeting group. Now there are 4 different types. Okay, so close match obviously is going to be close match. It's going to be very, very similar to your products. Loose match is going to be a little bit of a broad term. Okay, and it gives examples here. Bed sheets, bath sheets, and bath towels are all different from cotton sheets, but they're similar enough that they're a loose term. Okay, substitutes are going to be, they're going to show on detailed pages that include like 300 count cotton sheets and queen 400 count sheets, that type of thing. So it's actually products that would replace yours, or you would replace the opportunity of those products. And so it'll show up on the actual product page. And complements are going to be kind of a loose match version of that as well, where it will go for queen comforter and feather pillows instead of just the 400 count sheets
that you might buy with that as well.
Exactly. And so it offers a recommended or suggested bid, and you can of course do that, or you can do above or below. Where this actually matters as far as the bid, there's actually a secondary part to this. And that is going to be what you're going to do as your bidding strategy. Now, almost all automatic campaigns start off with what's called a dynamic up and down. So there are 3 different controls, well, 4 really, that Amazon actually gives you. Okay, so you have dynamic bids down only, dynamic bids up and down, you have fixed bids, and those are the strategies that you're allowed to do as on sponsored product campaigns. So we'll explain what this means. Dynamic bids down only. If we have a dollar cost per click, we can set it at that, and the next competitor that if there's another competitor that their cost per click is 85 cents. Even though we bid $1, we actually win the bidding war, and our cost per click won't come out to being $1. It would actually come literally with just 1 cent above the next closest competitor. Okay. So instead of being 85 cents, it would be 86 cents. And that's what we would actually do for that. Okay. Now, the trick to dynamic bids down only is that this works really well when you have a lot of relevancy and when you are building a lot of traction for yourself and you're actually trying to more optimize than anything. So the reason why dynamic bids up and down is usually the automatic enrollment, so to speak, it's automatically clicked by Amazon, is because they can actually raise your bids up or down. So with dynamic down, Amazon in real time is only allowed to lower your cost per click if they feel that you are less likely to convert to a sale. So that's where the dynamic bids down only works, is that if Amazon is going to change something, they're only allowed to move it down if they feel that it's less likely to convert to a sale. And dynamic bids up and down is that they can actually lower it in real time or raise it in real time by up to 100% either way.
You're going to get more impressions, more clicks with up and down.
Yes, you're also going to get a lot higher cost per click, but that's okay if you're already pretty well honed in on a lot of your search terms and your SEO. The last one is called fixed bids. So these fixed bids, you literally just put in the bid and Amazon says, this is your bid. Of course, they have the rule where if I bid $1 and the next closest competitor is still 85 cents, my cost per click is only going to be 86 cents instead of the 85. So it'll be 1 cent above the closest competitor. However, Amazon is not allowed to lessen your bid amount as far as fluctuating or raise it above any other parameters that you set. Okay. So dynamic bids down only, dynamic bids up and down, and fixed bids. Those are the 3 different campaign bidding strategies that you're allowed to do. Now, involved with each of these strategies, you can use what are basically commonly referred to as multipliers. So if I have a dynamic bids down only, you can click down right here, and there is top of search. And so top of search is going to be up here. You can bid in order to actually try and get these top of search placements right here, where someone comes in, they type in the search term and you pop up right there. Now, those are almost always going to be more expensive. For like an automatic campaign as an example, because I'm okay with usually keeping it on dynamic bids up and down, I will usually do a lower term here, because if Amazon believes that my product is likely to convert, they can increase my cost per click by 100% plus whatever percent is here. They will add that on top of it. So if I've got $1, they can actually increase my cost per click bid up to $2 if they believe that I deserve to win that opportunity. And if I want the top of search on that, then if I put 100% in here, it's going to do it all over again. I can actually increase my cost per click bid up to $4, right? See how that works? So in essence, you want to be very careful when you have dynamic bids up and down. You really want to be careful with what you're doing for the top of search or these multipliers, because it can really add up really, really, really fast. And if you have a low budget that you're willing to spend, 3 or 4 clicks, it's already gone. So if we do dynamic bids up and down, I would probably put this at, I usually start anywhere between 20 to 35%. We'll just say 20% for a top of search. And then over here, coming back up to these different targeting types, I'm okay with leaving these as they are. They're pretty low cost per click, so I'm okay with that, because realistically, Amazon can double that. So it can be up to easily 80 cents plus another 20% on top of that. And then you give it a campaign name. What I'll do is I'll do the ASIN, the campaign type, and then if there are specific keywords or strategies that I want to highlight, I'll put that in there as well. It's just, this is only for organization. That's it. Then you decide on the amount of budget that you want. Now, when you first start, it does say most advertisers start with a daily budget of at least $10. This fluctuates based on how aggressive your cost per click is. So in some categories, if I get really aggressive and actually come in here and I say, hey, we'll see if it'll actually do it. If we do a $2 cost per click bid, in some categories, they'll actually adjust that and they'll actually say, hey, we recommend that you actually move it up to $100. So you don't always have to follow those recommendations. Just always know that you can stick with what makes sense. One of the best strategies that can happen is to try and find the floors and the ceilings. What is the minimum cost per click that I need to do to get just one impression? And what's the maximum cost per click that I really need to do that is going to kind of cap out that, and then finding a good kind of within that range.
Like $20 is a place just to start gathering data and then you adjust later.
Yeah, so $20, you have to realize that you could potentially go through, if I'm doing a $2 cost per click, like what I did on my close match. Okay. If I'm doing a $2 cost per click, that's really only 10 clicks here.
Yeah, it's nothing.
Right. It's nothing. Right. Now in the long haul, if we're doing $20 a day, it adds up over the course of the month. So be aware that what your daily budget is. It doesn't mean that Amazon is going to max out that, only if the opportunity exists and your conversions are there. Because a lot of these campaigns, these bidding strategies will optimize towards your click-through rate and your conversion rate. Those are the two big factors that deal with your product in these campaigns. So that Amazon wants to know if we funnel traffic to you, are people interested in it? If they're interested in it, are they buying it? Right. And so those are the two big factors that Amazon's algorithm is actually looking for in relation to this. So just because you start off with $20, you may not actually get it if you're too low of a cost per click. And if you're too high, then you might actually blow through your budget
out
really
very
fast.
in a matter of hours. Yeah. If it's like typically $50 a day or $100 a day is actually normally where we will start. The more competitive the keyword, the more you're going to need to pay for the clicks, hence higher your daily budget is going to need to have the ads on all day. And this also, you need to take into consideration how aggressive do you want to go, what's your budget, how much inventory you have, right? And so how aggressive you want to go. But if you don't know anything else and you're on a relatively small budget, $20. Otherwise, I would say $50 a day, Ryan, wouldn't you say? Because you're just going to gather data faster there.
Yep.
And if it doesn't
Yep.
run out, it doesn't run out.
Yep. The big thing with automatic campaigns, and this is my own perspective on this, they're good for if you haven't done your keyword research. If you have already done your keyword research, they are still good to have, but you don't have to funnel as much budget to it. If I haven't done any keyword research and I just come in and I start an automatic campaign and I want Amazon to just take what's in the back end of my listing and I want it to take its relevancy and just try and run with it and see what it can find me, that's what it's for. I would probably put more of a budget towards it. However, if I've already done my keyword research and I go, if I only have $50 a day, I would probably only put like $5 or maybe $10 here, because I've already done the keyword research and I already know where I'd rather have it
Right.
go.
This is the automatic campaign. Okay, right. Yeah. For
Yep.
the $50 total with clients we're talking about. Yeah, typically the starting across all your campaigns for that one product, about 50
Right.
total. Okay, so you put more weight
Right.
behind the manual, which we'll get into.
Right. And that comes down to the next part of what we're doing. And this is where it can get a little more complex and where organization really does matter. Okay. So if you wanted to launch that campaign, by the way, you would hit launch campaign, it would have started. Okay. Now, if we revert back and start up here, after you put in the product, if we reset this, we add in the product that we want to advertise. Instead of this automatic targeting, we can choose manual targeting. And this is where we actually get to tell Amazon, these are the keywords we want to go after. You'll notice that it has automatic targeting, right? Because it normally sets up here with the default bid. It goes from automatic targeting to manual targeting. Now, under the keywords, you're going to have three different options. You're going to have broad, phrase, and exact. In the sequence of what a broad or a phrase or an exact phrase is, there is a little bit of overlap between all of these. Okay, but they're funneled pretty well. A broad, this is a perfect example. So phone card holder, if we use this, a broad phrase on this could actually change this variation at any place that it wanted to. Instead of saying phone card holder, it could actually send or have your ad pop up if somebody types in holder card for phone or card holder for phone. Any type of variation of those, even if it's long tail and it's like a phone holder that will also hold my cards, if that's what they actually type in because they have no idea what they're looking for, they saw someone have it and there's like, oh, what's the, and they just type in this big long tail opportunity.
Yeah, in a broad sense, phone
still
card holder, in a broad sense, anything that someone types in related to that with those words in any way.
Those words in it or any variation. Okay, so a phrase match is going to be that exact sequence. Okay, so it'll show up with phone card holder, that is the sequence of term. Phone card holder for my phone, as long as it says phone card holder in that exact sequence, then it can also go after the rest of that term. Okay.
Got it.
Now, an exact term is literally that exact thing. Phone card holder. There's no long tail opportunity. There's no add-ons before or after it. Okay. So it is exactly phone card holder. Now, it is easier sometimes to manipulate your cost per click depending on what you're going after. Now, in most categories, this one's actually really interesting to me. The exact term here actually has a middle recommended bid by Amazon. That's very surprising to me. A lot of times the exact term is the most expensive because it has the most buying intent. Okay.
Yeah.
And so the phrase match actually has one of the lowest, and the broad actually has the highest. So that's a little bit strange to me. I usually kind of bypass these. I'll take these recommendations into consideration, but usually I know the type of strategies that I'm going to go after. And so I will actually create different campaigns. And so I'm going to come over here and actually show this. So over here, when I first start something, it's like there's an automatic campaign, and then there's a broad campaign or an exact pool campaign that will also add on, and also probably a phrase match campaign. I'll actually add a phrase match campaign in there as well. So the reason that I do this, that I've already done my keyword research and I know what the root search term is or the broad opportunity that I want. I already know the phrases that I think I'm going to want and that my product should be relevant for. And I also have the exact terms that I know my product is relevant for, and they all build on themselves. And so that is what I'll be doing, is that I'll come in here and you can use these recommended search terms as well. If you haven't done your keyword research, this recommended still comes up under the category, your past purchase history, and then also your backend SEO, the relevancy, right, that we already talked about. And so if I'm going to start off with a broad campaign, if I come in here under broad and I can enter my list of keywords, copy and paste, boom, they all show up. I mean, as an example, if we just take this as an example, if we had an entire list, you can put them all in, and then you can do the suggested bid, custom bid, or default bid. And so the default bid for this campaign is something that, like, it can always show up as that, or you can just do a custom. I'll probably do point. If this is a broad, I probably would do this actually 48 wasn't bad. I would actually probably do it as the 48. Then I would add those keywords, and it shows up here because I don't want all of my money to be spent on broad. I'd rather have it be spent further down that funnel, either in the phrase or the exact. I can come in here and put negative search terms that I know I don't want it to go after, which if we've done our keyword research, we know that maybe there's specific products or brands that we absolutely
I would
not
put
want in there.
Pop Wallet in there.
Yep, that's right. Pop Wallet is one of yours.
One word spelling, Pop Wallet.
So other things that actually pop up that we know we don't want it to, and we can put the negative phrase so that if at any time, if Pop Wallet is in there at all, remember how we talked about sequences, so the Pop Wallet phrase, if that is ever in there at all, it will not show up. Or you could even do it as exact, where it's just that exact term.
Do you put a lot of competitor brand names in here or product names?
Yeah, so I tend to do that a lot more. Either that or terms that I know are not where I want it to show up. I am going to negative phrase this in my first round of advertising, because I'm okay if it shows up as maybe broader opportunity in the automatic campaign, but I'm not going to target with search terms because I'd rather have my ad spend be exactly where it's supposed to be. I want to build the direct relevancy for that product.
And especially during launch, your reviews are going to be low. So your conversion rate is not going to be the best at beginning. So you want to be only go for the bread and butter, very target one. So I would put leather. I would put Apple, because it's not a leather wallet. It's not Apple's. Now they may see the sticky wallet, even if they're searching the Apple wallet, and be like, oh, well, this is actually kind of cool. Actually, let's go with that. But that's way much unlikely. We can test that later. So yeah.
Yep, absolutely. Now, some of the things, so Amazon always has like this recommended bid. It's the 78 cents. Right now it's on dynamic up and down is what the bidding strategy was on, right? So if we actually change this to like fixed bids as an example, notice how the recommended bid actually changes. So that's because Amazon is not able to change it in real time. And so they say, well, we recommend you should probably do a higher bid so that you can actually get impressions. Or if you click dynamic bids down only, it's going to change. Actually, that one's going to stay about the same as what it looks like. So for me, a lot of times I will actually start out, if it's a newly launched product, I will never really do dynamic up and down. I will either do fixed bids or dynamic bids down only. If I am very certain that my product will have a good conversion rate and I'm okay to kind of do the dynamic bids down only, I will if I'm trying to save money. If I am like, hey, I just need as many impressions and eyeballs as I possibly can, fixed bids is actually the way to go during a product launch. You have to be very careful because it is hard to optimize this. You are looking at this as impression-based marketing, not necessarily like optimized cost per click marketing. So for a broad campaign, I'm going to look at around anywhere between like a 35 to about a 50% top of search bid. And those are going to either dynamic down or fixed bids. That's where I would kind of hang out for a newly launched product. I give it a name, I give it my budget, right?
Yeah, and
10.
to keep the big picture for launch, where, as you said, focused on impressions. So for launch, you're not really focused on optimized cost per click. The goal for launch is get your product as much sales as fast as possible, which means as many impressions, and
Yep.
impressions mean clicks. So
Yep.
you want to get your product in as many people's hands and homes as you possibly can during the first month. And that goes into all of our videos about launch. You're not worried about profit now. You're worried about driving sales velocity, and that's going to bump up your organic ranking, which is going to start to get you organic sales. So that's painting the whole picture here. We're focused on sales, not profit. So that's why the more aggressive budget you can go, the faster you're going to start to rank. And this is the honeymoon period where it's easier to rank because your product is new. So this is PPC for launch. Of course, it depends on your own budget. That's something we help clients figure out. But yeah, your budget depends on your budget, how aggressive you want to go for the launch.
Yep, absolutely. Then would come the phrase match campaign under keyword targeting. All things are the same. We would add the product. We would click on manual targeting, keyword targeting. And over here, instead of broad, we would actually click phrase. In essence, we just take all these and we say, hey, we're going to put all of these in here with our custom bid. We choose, it normally is under suggested bid. And if you do click suggested bid, it'll just pop up with all those as suggested bids. And so you'll see how those are pretty high. You can obviously remove them all or individually. I would do a custom bid, 48 cents. If based on whatever I did the broad campaign, I'm going to go up a little bit as far as my cost per click. So 48 cents was what I did for the broad. I would probably come in here at about 65 cents. I would want it to be a certain amount above what I was doing the other one because I would rather have most of my cost per click going to the phrase match and the exact match.
More exact, more highly converting.
Yep. I put in those same negative phrases or negative exacts that I want, that I don't want to have show up in my campaigns at all. Dynamic bids down only or fixed bids, I'd make that choice. And then for my top of search bid, I would probably do anywhere around like 75 to probably like 90, well, anywhere between like 65 and probably 95, anywhere within that range as far as top of search. And then I would go back and I would do the exact same thing. So I'd hit launch campaign, put the name in there.
Campaign, okay, so you're doing a broad, a phrase, and an exact.
Yep. So that my broad campaign would be created and my phrase campaign would be created. And then I'd start over. I create another campaign, come in here with the lifestyle design. So I'd click on the product, manual, keyword targeting, and then change this from suggested bid to a custom bid and click on the exact. And I'd get my search terms in there. And I would probably put these ones up to about 85 cents in this situation. And of course, this is all relevant to your category, right? What are the recommended cost per click within that category, the floors and the ceilings? I'd add those in. And this is where I feel like it gets really good. Again, dynamic bids down only or fixed bids, depending on whatever my strategy is. Do I want more eyeballs? Do I want a like kind of converting search
So
terms.
fixed bids is going to be the more aggressive way to get more eyeballs.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because Amazon, especially for a newly launched product, you don't have any relevancy. Or so you have your relevancy score or whatever, you have your search terms there, but you don't have any conversion history. And
Yeah.
so because both of these strategies are actually based on how likely they are to convert to a sale, that is
Right.
the if, right? If we talk about if then rules, if Amazon believes that your product is more likely to convert or less likely to convert
AKA
to a
if it has
sale,
a search, if it has a history of higher conversion rate than the other competitor bidding similar to you,
yes,
then
then
it will show you over them because Amazon wants the customer to buy. That's how Amazon makes money.
correct. Yep. And so that's the if. This one, there is no if. That's why there's
Right.
that's why
So
you get more
so you're
impressions.
kind of at the end of the day, in general, you're going to be bidding higher than competitors, which that's what you got to do at launch. You got to pay
That's what you have to
Amazon.
do at launch.
I'm new. I'm willing to pay you more to show my product. Hey, can I
Yeah,
pay you to show my product? That's what we're doing. So you're going to
correct.
have to pay more for launch. Long term, it's a whole nother game, a game of optimizing that price down to the sweet spot. And that's
Yeah,
for long-term optimization. But for this, we are just trying to, again, get as many sales as possible.
yeah. Our big thing is that we are huge testers, and so we'll test out things over time. And about a year ago, I started experimenting more with the fixed bids and seeing how has that been going. And I've had better success, in my opinion, with fixed bids during launch than I have with dynamic down for the same reason. Now, this it's also why I will actually have a phase 2 of advertising. After several months of using fixed bids to just get as many impressions, Amazon works on 180 day sales history and sales velocity, right? And so if I have several months under my belt and I have enough data that Amazon is like, wow, I know the type of person who buys your product, I know how often like you should be at the top of search, I know these other things, I can actually go back in and I can either create new campaigns with, and I'll create the new campaigns with the dynamic bids down only, because at that point I can usually get it for a lower cost per click than with my fixed bids, and it's a little bit
Because
better
Amazon
there.
knows that you're gonna convert more than a lot of other competitors.
Correct.
Amazon's like, okay, we'll let you pay less because we know you're gonna get the sale for us.
Right. Absolutely. Now, going back to what I do in regards to the exact campaign, I very rarely will have a top of search that is less than 100, less than 100%. And my reason for that, I want that term. I absolutely want that term, and I want the exact one to show up for it. Because in the end, if I've already done my keyword research, I already know that this is the exact term that I want to be converting
Yeah.
on for either ranking or for sales, right? And so I'm
Yeah.
willing to pay to actually be up there. Plus, it builds my relevancy score. If someone types in phone wallet for my phone wallet, I want to be there.
So like stick on phone wallet spandex. That is exactly our product. That's exactly who's
Yep.
looking for us. We're willing to pay 100% or even more to be at the top of search, especially during launch. Hey, we're exactly that. Broader would be stick on phone wallet, which that is what makes the sticky wallet the most money because that's
Yep.
the term that has the highest search volume every day. That is the most relevant. So I call that the bread and butter keyword. That's what's making us
Yeah.
the most money. The keyword stick on phone wallet.
Yep.
So yeah.
Absolutely. And what's funny is that with yours, we do have the exact match in there, but we tend to be more aggressive with that phrase match because there's a slight variation that everyone types in because the product, which is funny to me, they don't know exactly what they're looking for with your product, right? Then they know it's not magnetic, and so they're like a stick-on phone wallet for the iPhone, stick-on phone wallet for my Android, and so by sometimes just targeting stick-on phone wallet as a phrase, we get the before and after opportunity. And so your phrase match there tends to get way better impressions at a little bit lower cost per click, and does
Cool.
actually convert really well too. So anyways, after this, I've created those campaigns. We launched those campaigns. They're now in the campaign manager. You can actually create also product targeting ads. And so if we add this in, kind of go through that same process, we click on manual, they have an opportunity
Okay.
where you can do product targeting. Can target it in two different ways. So it can show up as products related to this item. That's where this is. And
see.
there's 58 different pages of that. 4 stars and
Oh.
above. It's kind of sponsored as well. So it kind of shows up there. There's not a whole lot of control over product targeting aside from putting in the ASIN.
Yeah.
And so in here, you have categories or individual products. So the categories is cell phone accessories. In my opinion, that's super broad. You can refine that if you want to. You can do specific brands. You can do different review ratios, a price range between a certain amount, prime eligible, not, etc. It'll give you the estimated amount of products that are within that search that you're looking for. As an example, I've done this with some people where like our product actually had like a 5-star rating, but a good portion of the competitors actually had like a 3-star. And so we would specifically target 3-star and below, not even waste our spend on 4 and 5 stars because we wanted people to be like, wow, these people have way better reviews. Let's do that. And that was actually a successful campaign. But a lot of times, in my opinion, if your category is too broad, such as cell phone accessories, you have to be really careful that you don't just blow through ad spend on something like that. So usually what I'll do is I'll just come in with individual products, and I will have a preset ASINs downloaded already that I want to target. And you have to be very careful. They now have this exact or expanded. And so an expanded is basically a broad version of product targeting. So if I add in this product right here, for 47 cents, it's expanded. It's actually going to target not just this specific ASIN, but any ASIN that is also considered similar to this. So Amazon keeps track of similar to advertised products. That's actually like an actual match that they have in some of their sponsored display campaigns and those other things. So this is that same thing. So it's an expanded. It's similar to the advertised product of our ASIN, right? Or similar to this specific ASIN as it is. Okay, so if we put in this ASIN, it's expanded on this ASIN. And so we can click on those, or we can do, instead of an expanded, we can do an exact and say, hey, if we notice that we perform really well for this ASIN, and for some reason we get, a pretty good return on this, then yeah, I will absolutely put it in as an exact so that it doesn't try and broaden out the opportunity on different products. Then dynamic bids down or fixed bid.
That's going to show on their detail page under that similar items.
Yep, right here.
Anywhere else in the search results, or it's just showing on this detail page?
It does. So it dominantly shows on the listing. Now, just as with other things, there is a multiplier. So it naturally is going to show up on the product detail pages. You should never have to put in product detail pages. However, if you're going to do like an exact attack on a specific ASIN, you can, if you want to, say, hey, whatever this competitor shows up on, I want to hit that top of search. And you can put, if you want, 100% cost per click increase.
So these are for customers not necessarily searching their brand name.
Any keyword that this competitor is targeting that there is relevant for them, I want to be at the top of search, or I want to be on that listing.
Organically or sponsored, I want to be right there.
Yep. I don't want to say it's a lazy form of advertising, but it kind of is, because you're like, I don't really want to do the work, and you throw it on there and say, hey, if the competitor's done the work and I convert pretty well against them, then you can do it. I've had it work before, but generally it's not as clean as you'd want it to be, because like I said, most of it actually shows up on the product pages naturally anyway, so you hardly ever have to do this. Eventually over time they'll test that out. Now, my best practice for myself is that I usually do, anytime I do sponsored products that are product targeting, I use a fixed bid. Okay, I don't think it's necessary to do dynamic bids down only. These are mostly impression type based anyways. I'm happy to argue with anyone on this, but realistically, the amount of sales that are made from here is pretty low, because like they have 58 different pages that they can sort through. And so it's a good opportunity. And if you start getting traction there, great. You can find a good competitor. You can go a little more aggressively after them. You can actually, instead of just being in the product lineup, then take that same ASIN and put it in as a competitor for sponsored display. And then you're showing up here instead of just in the gallery.
Right. So this product targeting can be maybe a little bit of a test to say, okay, we're getting some sales for people checking out this product. Now let's go full force, put it as a display right underneath their freaking buy now button.
Right.
Yeah, and this in general, I would think if you're coming into the game with a new rowing machine and you're better than one of the top guys, you know you're better and you know you can steal customers, then that's when you would look into this.
Absolutely. That's pretty much the how-to as far as how to start the campaigns. Now, one of the other videos that we are going to create for you is actually the different strategies specifically for either launched campaigns. We'll actually go over what type of bidding strategies we're going to do, what recommended top of search, and then there are some things that are going to be dynamically up to you. Okay. And that's going to be what is your cost per click bid, what kind of range you're going to do for the multipliers. I think overall bird's eye view,
That's the setup. That'll get you
that's the
started
setup.
out of the gate, getting some sales for your brand new
Yep.
product that you just launched. As Ryan mentioned, make sure you have your listing is retail ready. Normally, our best practice is make sure you have 1 or 2 reviews, because with 0 reviews, sometimes the conversion rate's just not going to be great. Of course, you can see our videos about launch and pre-launch, preparing the listing for launch. Those will be in other videos. So hopefully it was helpful. Alrighty, and we got Amazon PPC expert Ryan Logan here. And how do I choose a PPC budget, Ryan? Let's say I'm a beginner client. Let's just say I am launching my private label product, just a single product. Where do I start? What do I put in as that daily budget?
That's a great question. Am I managing it or are you managing it?
Yeah, right. I'm managing
Yep.
it, right? I'm trying to learn.
All right. So you are managing it.
Yeah, I'm just like asking you as a friend, like, what do I do? I'm going to be managing my own thing. How do I determine what's my initial budget?
There you go. So a lot of this is very specific to an individual, right? What can they invest versus what can they not? The hard part with advertising, and this is where you get two sides of the extreme when you work with someone who's brand new to Amazon, right? I'm sure you've seen this as well, Riley. They go, you need to spend money to make money, so they throw every single dollar bill they have at it, and they're like, well, that was my $5,000 credit card, and now I only made 10 sales, right? We've seen that. And then you have the other people who are like, okay, I'm going to spend $2 a day, $5 a day. And it's like they're making actually about the same amount of sales sometimes, right? As the people who spend sometimes a 5,000 right away, just throwing it at the wall. And the people who are just, they're barely trickling any funds directly to their PPC. So for the people who are watching this, who tend to be on one side of the spectrum or the other, you want to lean towards the opposite of what you are feeling. Okay, that's going to be kind of a general consideration. If you are like, I'm going to throw every dollar bill that I have at it, hold off. Try to get closer to the conservative side, and if you're very conservative, try to get more to the being willing to spend more. It's a pretty good rule of thumb in business and in this type of thing to be aware of your faults and try to steer in the middle of where that is, right? So with that being said, you really don't have a huge business on Amazon. If you're trying to actually grow and rank your product and actually get to the top, you really should be spending roughly $50 a day at first. Now, I say that, like I said, with a grain of salt. For the people who are on one end versus the other one, they're like, well, you say 50, Ryan, I'm going to spend 100. It's like, good for you. Obviously using the targeting ads and doing your due diligence prior, because if you have your PPC campaign set up and you have your keywords ready and you're like, my product fits these terms, and you start advertising to those and your product isn't converting, it actually shows you that something is disconnecting between the audience and the product, and you're trying to fix that gap so that you're not just constantly doing wasted ad spend, right? And on the other end, if you are having conversions and you're trickling budget, start spending more. Like seriously, spend some more because you're making sales. Amazon loves the momentum and they will work with you. It gets really weird as far as payouts, and that is maybe a different conversation. Maybe we don't want to go down payouts.
So to summarize so far, $50 a day is normally what we say to clients, $50 to $100 a day.
Yep.
Depending on how aggressive do you want to go, sir? What's your budget? What's your cash flow situation? How much inventory do you want to have? How aggressive are you feeling? How serious and all in right now are you?
That's right. That's right.
It's basically how fast do you want to gather data? Because
Yeah.
If you're managing yourself, you're going to be looking at the data every week and then making adjustments what makes sense. If that $50 a day is going out and you're not doing good stats, okay, you're going to adjust the keywords, you're going to adjust everything. If it's getting good stats, you're going to up it up. And it also depends, huge other thing, the competitiveness of your categories slash product niche slash keyword.
Yes,
competitiveness, because if it's super competitive, the cost per click are going to be higher. You're going to have to pay Amazon more to get visibility. If you're in a really, really small niche, maybe you can start with $20 a day. And so it's up to you. Use that big old brain up there, and you can start it at $20 a day for a few days, and then go to 30, and then go to 40, and then go to 50 for a few days. You could do that if you're comfortable with that. It's a lot of this is what you're comfortable with. The more budget you have in your campaign daily, the faster Amazon's going to get you those eyeballs, right? Which is going to get you that data back. So it's how fast you want to go in all these questions.
One of a slight warning that I will offer to, again, beginners, as most advanced users have through painful experience, they understand this process. Amazon will sometimes say, hey, we ran out of budget. How about you increase it to 150? Right? Where it's like, hey, you had a $50 a day budget on something, and it says it ran out, and it says we recommend you increase that to 150 bucks. A beginner will often see that and say, Amazon thinks that I should spend 150? If Amazon says that I should do it, and the answer is be careful. If your campaigns are already not optimized, Amazon will spend your money without regard to your actual profit.
Think about it. They have an algorithm to get sellers to spend as much as possible. That's their goal.
Yeah, their very first dominance.
On the market.
Yep. Amazon's system is naturally tailored to direct ad spend to clicks. Okay. It is naturally meant to go towards where the interest is, because they believe that if there's enough interest in a search term, eventually that leads to conversions, right? It's actually a natural flow and progression as far as how their ad system works. So a lot of people are like, well, Amazon is trying to spend on it. It's like, yes, but the system, especially when you start, it's trying to get you as many clicks as possible so they can find out what converts. And so when Amazon says, hey, we think you should raise it to 150 bucks a day, it's like, yeah, it's because they can absolutely get you clicks. They 100% can. We don't know if they convert to conversions yet, like to orders. And so be a little bit more patient and hesitant until you start really realizing, okay, this specific search term, if that's in my campaign, I will absolutely raise that bid or raise that budget.
So make sure to summarize, make sure you are checking your conversion rate, right? And 10% or above conversion rate. 10% is average for a PPC ad. In order to be normally on top half of page one, for most categories, you're looking at 20% total conversion rate. Okay, so that's kind of rule of thumb there. Make sure your listing, of course, is retail ready, looks great. All right. If you're doing a launch, see all of our launch videos about having a launch discount price, right? Because you're going to have low reviews, right? So your conversion rate's not going to be as good as your competitor. So you're going to need to do some discounts to get that conversion rate up and spend more. Okay. And then also in terms of this daily budget thing, has to do with how many products you're advertising as well. So we're talking here about just one product. Normally, if you have two, you might want to double that if you want to fully launch both products. Let's say you have 10 or you have a suite of dozens. Normally the 80-20 rule comes into play. So it's 20% of your products are going to be the ones you're going to want to focus on. So put 80% of your budget behind those 20% that are your top sellers.
Yep, absolutely.
All right. Yeah. Any other tips before we get on to the next one about budget, or is that pretty much it?
No, I think that's pretty much it in regards to budget. Well, a few other cautions: budgets in regard to phrase match, exact match, and also broad match, right? And auto campaigns. So the different type of campaigns, like I mentioned earlier, they're meant to direct towards clicks. And so in our other videos, we've talked about what is an exact match, what is a phrase match, what is a broad match. And if you've understood how those matching systems work within Amazon's advertising console, you can also understand this next warning, that is, be careful about the budget that you use in regards to those different types of ad targeting types.
Yeah.
Okay.
You
right?
Can get granular inside there.
You can, and sometimes the system can run away with a phrase match or a broad match really easy, or an automatic campaign, because it's running through two groups that are kind of specific and two groups that are very broad, and actually they're complements to your category. They're not necessarily even your exact category. And so Amazon, if you're not careful, really can run away with spend. And so this isn't meant to cause fear, but just cautions. Be aware. We usually don't recommend that you check in like every single day, get really aggressive about what's going on. But maybe during the first few days of launch, when you first start an ad, we actually usually do, just to see how the spend is going, not necessarily to go in and jump it up or lower it down, but find out like, is it doing what we want it to do? Or are we spending enough to get clicks and impressions and leading those to orders? Or is it just shotgunning it out everywhere and it's actually not hitting anything directly?
Gotcha.
So those are my recommendations. So
yep, that's the basics. Of course, you have Ryan's other videos, tutorials about setting up all the campaigns, and also his weekly optimization checklist guide and videos. So, all right, that's it for that one. See you guys in the next one. All right, so what are the average PPC statistics? What sort of ACoS, TACoS, click-through rate, conversion rate should I expect? So before we start the conversation, because everything is nuanced, I'll just go over what is published online in terms of average stats, and then what we went over, what we think is good, great, not so great in terms of statistics. I'll just read through it initially, and then of course check the associated document with this video where we may add lots more notes in numbers and stuff. So for ACoS, 30% is published average across all of Amazon. At least that's what it says on the internet. And so 25 to 30% is good optimization phase, which means like long term. For launch, 50% to 100% is okay, very common and acceptable, because you're focusing on building rank and reviews for launch phase, right? And of course, everything we're talking about today, everything varies depending on the category and the price of the product. Are we talking $100, $200, $300 products, or are we talking $10, $20, $30 products? In general, we're talking average price stuff, $20, $30, $40, $50 range, right? That kind of more common range. If it's more expensive, these stats may be different. Great for ACoS, long-term optimization, product is established, 20 to 25%. Would you say, Ryan?
Yep.
Like if you're managing a long-term client, they're sitting at 20 to 25%, pretty happy.
They're happy. They've got great margin there as far as ACoS. Usually what that also means is that they're actually getting like a better cost per click than sometimes average in the category, because they also have good conversion rates and click-through rates.
Good conversion rate, good cost per click, not that competitive a niche. That's when you're going to get there potentially.
Yeah, or they literally have a product that just kills the category, and Amazon says, please take as much of this as you can. And so you can sometimes negotiate lower cost per clicks in opportunities like that.
Gotcha. Okay, moving over to TACoS, or total ACoS. We call it TACoS. We say TACoS. So for long term, 15% to 25% is good for that kind of medium term, actually. And then 10 to 15% is amazing for long term. If you're getting 100 sales a day, let's have a party. That is great. That's a home run on Amazon. That's great. 10% or below. But for launch though, okay, 25 to 50%. So 25 to 50 orders are coming from PPC out of 100 for your launch phase, or even it could be more for your first initial month or weeks when you have basically no reviews. You're just relying on PPC to get those sales, right? For long term, medium term, if it's 30% and like medium term, you're going to want to try to fix that. Good for medium term, 15 to 20%, but of course a super great goal would be 10%. Most are never going to get there. Most 25% is like pretty good. Like you should be pretty happy with that 25% for medium to long term. So yeah, so that's TACoS. And click-through rate, 0.5% to 1% is good on average. 1.5%
hold on.
above.
Say that again, Riley. Say that again.
0.5% to 1%.
0.5%?
Yeah, to 1% for click-through rate.
Yep. That is correct. It's just, I want to reiterate it because if people haven't looked at the numbers, they don't actually know that is good. So yeah, like we want to clarify that Riley is not misspeaking here. That is actually
click-through rate.
So Amazon counts a ton of impressions. Okay, a ton of impressions. And the way that Amazon counts an impression is if your ad shows up on the page, first page, even if it's down at the very, very bottom of the page, and the customer only scrolls to like half, they actually count that as an impression.
They
because
do?
you don't click. Yeah. So So there's something that they call viewable impressions, which is different. But there are different parameters for a click advertising. They are allowed to actually count that as an impression. What is a viewable impression is counted differently. Okay. So they actually do track those as two separate metrics. Now, if it shows up at the bottom of the page and the customer never even goes down there, that's one of the reasons why it's counted as an impression, is that you had the opportunity for an impression. That's probably the better way, is that you have the opportunity for an impression.
Okay.
That's why like the controlling of like the top of search and like the bid increase and that type of stuff, that's why they matter, because it's not just the opportunity, it's the spot for that opportunity, for that impression. That's actually why if you when we have customer or clients who actually get into brand analytics, and they're like, what's the big upset between brand analytics and this? It's like, well, the big thing is brand analytics can actually show you, hey, this is how many impressions that this search term has, and it's like, this is how many searches that actually occur, which would be, let's say there's 100 different searches on a search term, but for some reason the amount of impressions that are available for that 100 search term or 100 volume search term is like 3 to 4 times that. And that's because an impression can happen on the first page, second page, third page, and even on pages in between that you're clicking on, right? Like product detail pages, you can have an impression that shows up there, and so they try to accumulate all of those impressions to give a view that's actually there. So all of this is just to show that the 0.5% is actually it's pretty good. Now the best, I want you to continue with those numbers, but yes, if you can get above a 1, that is solid. That means that you're getting good impressions, quality impressions, not just scattered impressions across the marketplace.
Targeted
So
impressions.
Go ahead and continue with those click through rate numbers again.
Cool. Yeah, that's just so people know the benchmark. And then that's it for click through rate. If you're at like 0.1%, you're probably going to want to look to try to improve that. How do you do that? You can split test the main image price, right? That's what people see, and probably increase your reviews. For conversion rate, 10% is average for PPC ads. In order to be top half of page 1, normally you need 20+% in terms of total conversion rate.
Yep.
See? So if you're in the single digits, you're going to want to try to get that up to, when we see single digit conversion rate, we're like, all right, what can we look at the listing to fix this?
Correct.
Yep. Cool. So yeah, those are the average stats. ACOS 30% average, tacos 20%. You're gonna be really happy with that. Click through rate 1%. You're gonna be really happy with that. Conversion rate 10%. You're gonna be happy. The best page 1 products are gonna be 20%. And of course, everything varies, as I said, category, price, competitiveness,
and your profitability, and
right, your margins,
what you are able to do. Yep.
Yeah. So
that's going to matter.
Yeah, the note here, make custom goals based on your margins and profit versus ranking goals. So what is our mission with this, our Amazon right now? Is it for ranking? Is it like, I've been on Amazon just cruising, but I'm like break even, I need to improve my margins. So you got to work towards those goals. Or it was profitable last year, now it started to dwindle down. Guys, how can you fix this? We basically need to do a relaunch phase, get your organic ranking back up. So now we're going to aim for more spend and, higher tacos. But tacos is in general kind of the main metric that you look at, right, Ryan, in terms of how are we doing with an ad spend for an account?
Yep. So when you start getting into bigger brand opportunity, and that's probably the goal of everyone who's taking a course, so they don't want to just have like a small one product business. They want to eventually grow it to a brand. So eventually most brands, when they get bigger, actually focus more on a tacos perspective in general, because they actually have a margin where they say, hey, look, we have 10 to 20 products, and we actually have this designated ad spend that we need to be pushing to try and get as much traction as we can with our products. And so there's usually a certain portion of total profits that's actually designated towards an ad spend. That is pretty traditional when you're actually working with product-based businesses. They have a designated ad spend portion. That's one of the reasons why it's a good metric to use, especially during launch and other things, is because it gives you a few benchmarks that you can look at. Okay, when you first launch and you have a 50% tacos, you're like, oh my goodness, what's happening here? But then after like month 2, 3, and 4, when you start actually ranking up enough where your organic starts kind of compensating, you start noticing that your tacos is going down to a better level. And you're going, oh wow, it started off at 50 and I'm at 40. and now I'm at 30, now I'm at 20. And you actually see firsthand something that Stephen Pope actually says, where he says that if you've done SEO correctly and if you've done PPC correctly, every PPC sale that you have will have an effect or will also accumulate roughly 3 organic sales to that one PPC sale over a 6-month period, right? Because in his mind, it is you're using ad spend for a purpose of ranking with SEO. And so it over time is like you're pushing heavy over here with spend, and eventually it bounces out to this, right? And so that's the reason why Tacos is good, is it can give you a good benchmark of, are you spending good enough in your category? We have had clients who came to us and they said, hey, our past PPC agency, we lost all of our ranking and we have the best ACoS we've ever had and we don't know what's wrong. And we look at it, and one of the big problems is that they actually took their eye off of sometimes their tacos, and they looked at just in their advertising, how are they performing? And yeah, they were getting like a 15 and a 20% talk, or a 15 to a 20% ACoS, but their tacos was like at a 5%. And when we look at actual metrics, that is not even an optimization level. That is actually a penny pincher level. And so especially in a competitive category, when other people are willing to spend a 10% tacos, a 15% tacos, and even a margin of sometimes a 20% tacos to maintain that velocity and maintain those sales, you kind of have to compete at that level a lot of times. And so that's what ends up happening, is that we say, well, the problem is that you're focusing too little on your tacos. And sometimes they go, what the heck is the tacos, right? And that's when you have to have this explanation of ratios of actual ad spend to ad sale, or ad spend to total sales, and how it actually affects the SEO process and the ranking process. And sometimes it blows people's mind. So yeah, tacos is a really good metric to pay attention to, not just at launch, but actually throughout the phases of your product journey.
I've always thought it makes sense. You look at your total account. Okay, I had 100 sales this month, and how many of those came from ads slash what was your spend? If our total revenue for the month was 100,000 and our spend was 10,000, 10% tacos. That's the easiest calculation that I look at. I said when I ask people, okay, what's your total revenue and what's your total spend? One simple calculation. Okay, you're spending 10,000 and you're making 100,000 in sales. It's the simplest profit calculation. Okay, right? And it's the simplest metric to look at. If you're spending $30,000 in ads and you're $100,000 in revenue, okay, we need to improve that. So how are you going to do that? Work on getting more organic sales for every PPC sale, right? So having that ratio of organic to ad sales better. A 10-to-1 ratio. Woo, awesome. That's amazing for long term. That's like a goal up there. But 2 out of 10 ad sales you can be happy with. For initial phases, 3 out of 10, 4 out of 10, 5 out of 10, even 8, 9 out of 10 if for like the first month when you're just trying to launch.
Yep.
Cool. All right, that's it for this one. Questions, let me know. Comments, let me know, and see y'all in the next one.